here. They're highly filled with bed bugs. People are scratching their asses, and they keep telling me, you were right, you were right. Those cushion seats are filthy. They've never been changed, treated, or disinfected. So please, if your ass is itching, you got bed bugs. And having said that, thank you. Number 2. Let's begin by saying first, Los Angeles, we have no more communities. People are just existing daily with terror because there is no public safety. Real, vibrant, wholesome, thriving communities don't exist in the sense that they used to be labeled before. People, residents, Americans don't feel safe, happy, healthy in a safe environment. In their private worlds, like they used to be. They're not intact. Most of them live in shackles, in fear, and they're on opiates or drugs or booze. Communities are not defined as they were defined before. People, residents are just existing. They live with worry, apprehension, torment, and anguish. Let's change that. God bless Donald Trump and bring back the Republicans, baby. Kick ass.
Thank
and
you very much.
Deportation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Herman? Is Herman here?
We're having a revolution, and that's to destroy hospitals to gain more schools. Why do we need more schools when we don't have the appropriate, certified, educated, bachelor degree teachers to teach in their field to accompany our children to a better college? Because we have sellouts in our community. Broken promise politicians who are reckless in their homes and with their families. And then they come here and spread the same fucking lies to all of us. We, the legislative body of the Brown Act. So when you try to disguise improving the quality of life for our children, stop using children as a stepping stone for a charter school. If you want to educate, learn from educators. If you want to teach someone something stupid, listen to a stupid politician like Jose Huizar.
Okay, you're not on the topic. If you're going to stay on the topic, we're going to cut your time off.
You listen to a
if you're not on topic,
fifth place
you're off
loser
the topic.
Chair,
from
this
the
person
valley.
is off
He's
topic.
off topic.
Couldn't even
Could you please
win.
Cut his
excuse
time,
him from the
Herman.
meeting?
Cut his time.
You're off
Sergeants,
topic.
if you can escort it back. Please escort him back to his chair.
Sir,
Now
you're
he's
off
disturbing-
topic.
he's
We're asking you to
disrupting
leave
the
the
meeting.
meeting, please. You're disturbing the meeting. You're obstructing the meeting. Thank you. Wayne? Can you escort this individual out of the meeting, please? Thank you. Wayne?
Hey, if we can ask the audience, please hold your we still have an individual disrupting the meeting, and Sergeant is going to go ahead and escort him out. So we're going to wait a minute while he's escorting him out.
Continues to disrupt as he's being
Still disrupting the meeting.
Walking.
Thank you, Armando Herman. Thank you. Great to see you again.
Wayne, followed by Mickey Jackson and Susan Hunter.
Good. So the report by our incompetent planning director, fuck the report, we don't need it. Then we get to number 2, community plan program. We don't have a community plan program. Professional environmental consultants. None of you are professionals. You're all here to take campaign money. That's all you're here for. There's nothing professional about any of this. Fuck number 2. Number 3, we get to the school. What the hell's wrong with the school? We can't build private schools anymore. Why is there an appeal on this project? We went ahead. The people doing the project did the three right things that we know that they did. First, they blackmailed Jose Huizar. Second, they paid off Rochelle Huizar. And
Okay, you're not on the
third,
topic. No,
they
you're not on the
went
topic.
ahead-
So as the last
you're not
speaker,
the chair.
okay, no, it doesn't
You're
matter.
not the chair.
I'm on the. Okay, so you're disrupting this meeting by not staying on the topic. Wayne, you know the rules. Go ahead and sit down. No, your time is up. Sergeants, go ahead and escort him out. He's continuing to
Wayne,
He's
you are
continuing
disrupting
to
the
disrupt
music.
the meeting.
If you ask,
Goodbye.
If you,
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you.
yeah,
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Show him out. Show him out. Thank you.
Mickey Jackson, Susan Hunter.
Hey, folks, by the way, I just want to let you know, for those of you that have never been to one of these public hearings before, we have some regulars that do show up at every single one of them, and like to share and remind us of our First Amendment and their First Amendment rights. However, there are rules that they have to follow in terms of speaking on topic, and unfortunately, oftentimes, in fact, every day, disrupt these meetings, and they're almost every single time have to ask to leave as they continue to yell out like Wayne Spindler's doing right now. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate it.
Mickey Jackson.
Mickey Jackson with Coalition to Preserve Los Angeles and Healthy Housing. I wanted to speak about exemptions from CEQA. I find it very disturbing that everything is getting exemptions from CEQA. CEQA is an important law. Our environment is more threatened than ever, and these exemptions are just not the right way to go. On Sunset Gordon, we have the site. It should be wrapped in crime scene tape. We have the site of so many violations, and the response of the City Council at this point is to exempt it from rules, and to exempt it from regulations, exempt it from everything. And you will be hearing from Mitchell Sy on the more technical aspects of that, but this should not be happening. On the Montecito, this is a federal monument. This has certain boundaries that were determined by that, and it behooves our city to follow those boundaries and to respect the status of the Montecito. It's not only an important historical structure, but we get a wonderful twofer because it is also an affordable place for people to live, and as we know, every day there seems to be fewer of those. And the last thing I'm going to speak on is the current building that is occupied by Amoeba Records at 6400 Sunset. Again, we see exemptions, we see a rushed process. That building is a cultural treasure. It is a cultural monument for us. Everyone that you can think of almost, including Paul McCartney, has played there, has signed records there. Otherwise, this area of Hollywood has lost its big music landmarks. And this is a very important cultural treasure, and we should keep it right where it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Hunter.
Susan Hunter, Coalition to Preserve Los Angeles. I'm here for multiple items. I have a lot of concerns, one being when we're talking about CEQA and the appeals process, that if we're going to be increasing the filing fee to $500, there has to be a fee waiver process for those who are lower income to be able to continue to participate in our democratic system. It's not okay to block people out by putting in a financial amount that people would not be able to meet. As far as the other items that I've chosen on my speaker cards, and I'm sure that there are people who are going to try to crucify me for saying this, but the bottom line is, in the city of Los Angeles, we do not have a housing crisis. We have more housing units available for people than what we do for people who are sleeping on the streets. We don't have people who are sleeping on the streets that can afford to pay $4,000 a month in rent. We are never going to build our way out of this crisis, and it is unconscionable that we are erasing our neighborhood character and cleaning communities out of low-income families and people of color, because those are the ones who are affected by this gentrification. We continue to cite a housing crisis that doesn't exist, as we have a 6% vacancy across the city, in order to justify bending and breaking and removing rules that we have set in place in a democratic process with consensus across the city. And it is no longer okay to justify removing those rules so that a few can benefit at the cost of our neighborhoods, our communities, and the homeowners who now have to pay more in taxes for services for people who should never have been displaced in the first place. It is no longer okay to continue to operate in this manner, and that is exactly why Measure S was introduced and proposed. Because there's too many allowances being given that in the long run are harmful for our communities. And the projects that are proposed are not because the communities want them, but because a few people want them so they can increase the amount of money that is in their wallet. Thank you for your time.
That concludes our multiple item speakers. We will now move to the consent items. We will continue item number 2 to a date uncertain. Item number 2, we will continue to a date uncertain. Item number 4, we will approve on consent. There are no speaker cards on this. We'll approve without objection. Item 7, we will continue to November 27th. Item 8, we will continue to November 27th without objection. Item 12, we will continue to November 20th. And that brings us to the first item on the agenda, the report from the Director of Planning, Mr. Bordoni.
Thank you, Chair Weezer and members of the committee. I do not have a report this week, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We will now turn to item number 13.
And if I can, Chairman Huizar, I would ask on item 13, since we've had numerous public hearings on this already, and knowing that today a lot of folks want to get out to make sure that they can cast their ballot as well, but I think it's critical that we hear the public once again and as often as possible, that instead of, and what we usually do on items like this that have had multiple public hearings is we'll traditionally limit it to about 10 to 15 minutes on each side. I would suggest, because of the turnout today, that we extend that and have 20 minutes on each side on this item, and would appreciate and grateful that you're taking this first, since it appears that most of the folks are here on this particular item.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jenglender. Yes, we will go ahead and take that approach and allow for 20 minutes on each side, people who are for the proposal and against the proposal. And before we begin, so can you call the item to order, Mr. Mejia?
Sure. Item 13, Councilman. This is a City Planning Commission recommended proposed home sharing ordinance.
Okay. How do we know who's for and against on the speakers? Okay. Yeah, I'll go by this. And then you have the other one? Thank you. So we'll get started. And with that, if we could have staff make a presentation. We've had numerous hearings on this, but perhaps if you could go over the action of the CPC. This was last at the Citywide Planning Commission, and explain to us what's before us today.
Yes, good morning, committee members. My name is Matt Gillespie. I'm with the Planning Department's Housing Policy Unit. Yes, we intend to just walk the committee through some of the proposed changes to the ordinance that have been recommended since the Plum Committee last considered this item. By way of quick background, the ordinance before you is the proposed home sharing ordinance, which the committee has seen several times over the past year. At the last Plum Committee meeting on April 10th, 2018, a series of changes were recommended to the proposed ordinance. The full City Council adopted these Plum changes on May 2nd and also directed staff to conduct additional analysis on a number of items and bring the revised ordinance back to the City Planning Commission for consideration. The proposed ordinance was heard at the City Planning Commission on September 13th, 2018, and the Commission made several additional amendments to the proposed ordinance. The first set of changes to the proposed ordinance are those made by the Plum Committee in its recommendation to City Council on April 10th. Most significantly, the committee changes included the lowering of the annual cap to 120 days and the creation of a two-tiered system to exceed that cap, known as extended home sharing. There were several other instructions from that meeting that we will not read, but note that they've all been incorporated into the proposed ordinance. However, we did want to highlight one topic area relating to one of the plum instructions. It involves an existing provision in our code called a transient occupancy residential structure, or TORS. TORS is an existing short-term rental use that is currently permitted in higher density areas, usually requiring a conditional use permit, or CUP. The Plum Committee instructed the department to eliminate the ability to convert entire or partial apartment buildings to short-term rentals through a change of use to a TORS. The original department recommendation had included a ban on conversions of residential buildings to TORS when they were subject to a CUP. However, as a result of the Plum instruction to completely ban conversions, the department has revised the TORS regulations to prevent all TORS conversions from residential uses, even when a CUP is not currently required. This impacts a few areas of the city like downtown and Hollywood, where TORS conversions would have remained allowable. As mentioned, on May 2nd, the full City Council requested additional reports on a number of items through a series of motions. The department's response to those motions, including a full analysis of the various policy options, is included as part of our September 13th, 2018 staff report. As a result of those motions, the department has incorporated a second set of changes that respond to issues raised by various City Council members, including the three following changes. First, the ordinance now requires that hosts be suspended from participating in home sharing during the 30 days after they've been cited as a loud and unruly gathering under the city's new party house ordinance, LAM section 4158.1. Second, the ordinance now requires that hosts provide a code of conduct to guests that will include the primary provisions of the ordinance. Third, that hosts renting properties located in very high fire severity zones shall post written notices on any patio or deck that smoking is not permitted outside of the house. Finally, a third set of changes was introduced by the City Planning Commission at their September 13th meeting. They include the following. First is a significant change to allow units subject to the Rent Stabilization Ordinance, or RSO, to be used for home sharing for up to 120 days per year, and therefore not being eligible for extended home sharing beyond this cap. Units subject to the RSO had been prohibited from home sharing in the ordinance, considered by City Council out of concerns about impacts to this vital housing stock. The second change was to allow accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, that submitted a building permit prior to January 1st, 2017, which is when state law changed significantly to permit greater numbers of ADUs in the city, to be used for home sharing regulations, regardless of the primary residency requirement. This date is tied to when state law changed. So the allowance would affect just a few hundred ADUs permitted before 2017 under the old rules. ADUs permitted after this date can be used for home sharing, but only if the ADU is shown to be a primary residence. Third, the Planning Commission requested that an administrative fee study be completed to inform all application fees in the ordinance, including the registration and entitlement fees, as well as a per-night daily fee for administration and enforcement. That fee study would take some time to complete. In the absence of a fee study, the department recommended establishing fees based on the best information available, including similar entitlement and administrative clearance procedures already in place. The final CPC change set a July 1st, 2019 date certain effective date for the ordinance. The idea was to align the effective date with the start of the fiscal year to aid in staffing and resource allocation to ensure the effectiveness of the regulations. Finally, we wanted to mention that the Department of City Planning sent a transmittal to this committee yesterday that recommended one relatively minor amendment to the ordinance. The change would revise LAMC 12.22A31 G3 to clarify that the enforcement of violations of the ordinance addressed through the Administrative Citation Enforcement Program, or ACE program, may be served by the host, may be served to the host, and or property owner through personal service or by mail. That was a clarification requested and discussed with the city attorney. That summarizes the significant changes that were made from Plum's original instruction on April 10th. With that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our presentation. We will now go into public comment. We will start off. We will get through as many people as we can on either side for a total of 20 minutes. First is David Ewing, Cynthia Strathman, Myrna Bohan. Are those individuals here? No? David Ewing, Cynthia Strathman, Myrna Bowen. And for public comment, each individual has 1 minute to speak. Welcome.
Hi, hello. My name is Cynthia Strathman. I'm from Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. We're a nonprofit in South LA that works with extremely low-income tenants. The housing crisis is definitely acute there. Many of our members struggle to find and keep housing. They're living in some of the most overcrowded housing in the entire United States. They're in desperate need of RSO units, which have provided a lot of our members with a really important source of stability over their lifetimes. It's allowed them to raise kids in secure and healthy circumstances and allowed them to send those kids to college. We also see landlords regularly trying to illegally evict tenants from these premises and replace them with wealthier, whiter, hipster somethings that they might prefer to have there. These low-income RSO units are really, really a vital resource, and we really encourage council to prohibit them from the short-term rental market and let them remain as housing that is very much needed. In addition, many of our members live in small outbuildings, and we also advocate for ADUs to remain under the same kinds of restrictions that they were before. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is David Ewing. Please put the RSO tenant protection back in this ordinance. It's not about tenants losing an opportunity to participate in the sharing economy. It's about keeping a roof over their heads. That's what they're worried about, being pushed out. Here's what the LA Times had to say in an editorial. City staff said the prohibition was necessary to reduce the incentive for landlords to evict short-term tenants, and convert apartment buildings into de facto hotels. But in promoting the benefits of the sharing economy, Garcetti is ignoring the real-world economy and the city's housing crisis. Tenants with rent control enjoy a unique government protection that's meant to provide stability over the long term, not to create an opportunity for profit. So that's the real danger. So please keep your eye on the ball. This is about protecting those who need protection most. Thank you.
Thank you. Myrna Bowen, Sylvia Ereth, Trinidad Reese.
Good afternoon. My name is Myrna Bohan. I'm with Venice Community Housing, a nonprofit developer in Venice. And we've seen over the period of time the loss of affordable housing and the conversion of RSO units. And it's contributed to the unhoused issue that we have in our community. And it's also reducing the opportunities for people to live and work in their communities. And so we've seen that over the period of time. I do also want to go on record that I do support home sharing, which is real homeowners or real people using home sharing in their own homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Areth, Trinidad Reese. Sylvia here? Not here? Okay.
Hello, thank you. My name is Trinidad Ruiz. I represent Power, People Organized for West Side Renewal. Quickly want to make a statement on behalf of Power. The Plum Committee has done the right thing today by adding RSO unit protections back into the home sharing ordinance. LA's tenants and low-income families need these protections as a safeguard to their homes and to their economic stability. With the re-addition of these prohibitions, we are closer to the comprehensive short-term rental regulations our city so desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand Councilmember Koretz is here. There you are. Welcome, Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am hoping that we can soon reach the point where we go through or finish going through this relatively lengthy process. And I thought at this point it's important for me to tell you and the commission what I think about their new version of the home sharing ordinance. I think they're mistaken if they think it's all right to open it up to rent stabilized units. I think we can't ensure that the privilege won't be abused and that we will lose even more precious RSO units to full-time home sharing. People have estimated that we have lost around 10,000 units in the city, maybe more, that could be contributing to easing our tightening rent market. And I believe that we should not include RSOs for that purpose. I also think it's critical that we reduce the number of days a year that that home sharing can operate under. I think that the cap that we had originally placed of 120 days is pretty close to appropriate. I think the break-even point for companies that go full-time sharing or individuals is around between 90 and 120 days. So it's probably not worth it to go full-time and only do it for 120 or fewer days. So I think it makes it, again, less likely that units get totally taken off the market. If we limit it to those numbers, if we look at 240, I think essentially that means the unit is taken off the market and it winds up usually being a full-time usage. I think the impacts on our neighborhoods have been dramatic. I think the impact on our housing has been dramatic. I think what the council originally approved is very appropriate if we're going to go forward with allowing home sharing, and I would encourage you to return to those levels. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kretz. Thank you for coming and testifying on this very important matter. I know you've been involved with this issue for some time, and you're correct. It's time that we move on and get something on the books. Gina Charo-Sambat, Ingrid Arriaga.
Hi, my name is Gina Trusenbot, and I am from TIE Community Development Center, a community development organization that works to support tenant rights in the city of Los Angeles. At TIE CDC, we see the effects of the housing crisis every day. Many families living in our Halifax housing development in Hollywood have 2 or 3 generations living in the same unit. These families do not have the option to rent out their unit and stay in a second home or take extended vacations while renting out their unit. Short-term rentals make the housing crisis worse by taking much-needed housing off the market. Removing RSO unit prohibitions from the ordinance language will only exacerbate problems and will incentivize landlords to remove low-income families in favor of affluent single folks. We need to pass strong legislation now to protect our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid Arriaga, Heather Rosman, Lucy Trong.
Good afternoon. My name is Ingrid Arriaga, and I'm a supervising attorney at the Inner City Law Center, a nonprofit organization that fights for tenants' rights here in LA. I've personally handled hundreds of eviction cases defending tenants right here at Stanley Moss Courthouse. And over again, I see landlords filing bogus cases against low-income, long-term rent-controlled tenants just to get them out. Short-term rentals make the housing crisis worse by taking much-needed housing off the market. We need these rent control protections to protect these low-income, vulnerable communities. Many landlords pressure or evict long-term tenants in favor of renting out to more lucrative short-term renters. This is why we need these protections.
Thank you.
Chairperson Huizar and the honorable members of the committee. My name is Heather Roseman with the Hotel Association of Los Angeles. We are here today to urge you to approve the original draft ordinance adopted by the council earlier this year. That version of the home sharing ordinance struck balance between allowing this activity in one's homes and preventing the rampant abuse by commercial operators that we are seeing now.
That ordinance also had protections for the rent-stabilized units, and guest homes needed to provide more affordable housing options for all Angelinos. Illegal conversion from housing stock to de facto hotel rooms has impacted our communities, our housing, and our jobs. We ask for swift action so the City Council can finally legitimize true home sharing for those who have space to do it, and to stop whole home rentals and commercial operators looking to profit off the already scarce housing stock. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy Trong. After Lucy, Brian Averill, Karen Mestizo.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. My name is Lucy Trong, and I'm a volunteer for CCED. This is a tenants' rights group based in Chinatown. And CCED urges the council not to give in to the greed of corporations by ensuring that short-term rentals stay out of RSOs. The argument that companies like Airbnb supports tourism and equity in Los Angeles downplays the homelessness issue and lack of truly affordable housing in the city. In Chinatown, where the median income is $20,000, the most notorious of Airbnb rentals may be the Kim Sing Theater on Figueroa, going for a whopping $743 per night. Meanwhile, low-income Chinatown tenants have been hit relentlessly by rent increases. One of the more recent high-profile cases being at the Metro Senior Lofts, where low-income seniors were facing an 8% rent increase. Fortunately, they were able to fight off this increase by organizing together, but Airbnb has not been making this fight easier. So please support families and low-income tenants and keep STRs away from rent-controlled units. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Brian Averill, Karen Mestizo.
Hi, my name is Brian Averill. I've lived in, is that better? All right. My name is Brian Averill. I've lived in the same building in Venice for 15 years. About 5 years ago, when Airbnb rolled around, one by one, my neighbors disappeared. So 60 rent-stabilized apartments is now down to 10. A thriving community is now down to a bunch of drunken tourists using my building as a party hotel. This is not okay, and I'm asking you guys to help us out and do the right thing. Once again, this is a rent-stabilized, residentially zoned apartment building on a walk street in Venice. This is not okay. Thank you.
Karen. Laura Raymond, Fred Sutton.
Hi, my name is Karen Mestizo, and I'm a part of SAGE, a community group that works to support tenants' rights in the city of Los Angeles. And in the Tenant Action Clinic operated by SAGE, we see the effects of the housing crisis every day. When families come to us for suggestions on how to be kept from being evicted and displaced, I find myself giving more advice to those protected by the Rent Stabilization Ordinance. But there's also many tenants not protected by RSO. Every week, I have to tell a handful of tenants the bad news that there's no options to protect themselves from being evicted and displacement. Short-term rentals make the housing crisis worse by taking much-needed housing off the market. We especially need RSO units to be protected. We need these regulations to eliminate the ability of commercial operators from taking long-term housing and turning it into illegal hotels. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Raymond, Fred Sutton.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Laura Raymond. I'm from the Alliance for Community Transit Los Angeles, a coalition of 37 community groups that strive to protect and create affordable homes and good public transit access in the city of LA. Even as we work hard to find revenue for more affordable housing development, we know the most cost-effective affordable housing strategy is preserving what we already have. We need regulations to eliminate the ability of commercial operators from taking long-term housing and turning it into illegal hotels. Specifically, we need a strong enforceable ordinance that supports those who wish to earn extra income renting a room in their homes, but that does not incentivize commercial operators running full-time businesses to use badly needed affordable units. This draft ordinance before you is close to achieving this balance, but must include RSO unit prohibitions to protect low-income tenants from evictions and harassment. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Sutton.
Council members, my colleague Fred was going to be here, but I'm here in his place. Is that okay?
Yes, you're speaking for an organization, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Beverly Kenworthy with the California Apartment Association. We also agree that we would like to replace the ban in RSOs. This is not an equity issue. Tenants, this is not a tenant issue. This is an owner issue, and we don't want to create a loophole for owners to get out of their RSO requirements. Tenants across the board, whether you're in an RSO unit or a non-RSO unit, are overwhelmingly not allowed, by virtue of their lease, to use a hosting site for like an Airbnb to rent out their unit. We spent last year supporting the changes to the Ellis Act to close loopholes on these issues so we don't lose more units. So we urge you to please put the prohibition back in place. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Leslie Hendry, Linda Lux, James Almendorf.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Aroth, and I was in the restroom when you called me earlier, and Linda Lux is not here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sylvia Aroth. I'm a longtime resident of Venice, and I'm a property owner, and I just think that all rental units should be protected from any other use. With our housing shortage, what it is, commodifying housing over tenants and allowing people to make extra money at the expense of our affordable housing in Los Angeles is just absurd. And RSO units should be protected. Housing should be protected from people that are not satisfied with making 3% a year on their investment. I am a property owner. I have HUD tenants. I make plenty of money on my investment. I don't need to double my investment every year. Thank you.
Thank you. James Elmendorf.
Good afternoon, James Elmendorf, LA Alliance for a New Economy. I'm here today to ask you to do something that I think you've had to do before, which is overturn the mistakes of the LA Planning Commission. Unfortunately, after a great job done by this council and by the planning staff, they went against the unanimous vote of this council back in June 14-0 and tried to put in place rules that would ruin the RSO law in this city. And I'd like to ask this council to go back to the unanimous vote 14-0 back in June and make sure we finally put in place a good short-term rental ordinance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That concludes this portion of the speakers.
My understanding is the coalition was given 20 speakers. They asked me to speak. I understand that I already had general public comment, but I was asked to additionally speak on this subject.
No, we don't have anyone listed here for the coalition, and you already spoke on the multiple item cards, so that was your time. If you could please speak to the Sergeant at Arms if you have any concerns about how this was handled, so we could continue with our meeting. Thank you.
Can I have any additional time that was not used by other speakers?
I asked you to please speak with the Sergeant at Arms if you have any concerns about how this is being handled. You spoke in the multiple item speaker card area. I believe you attend many plum meetings, and if you need to review the rules again, please ask the Sergeant at Arms on what the rules are for speaking. Thank you. We will now go to the next speakers list and allot 20 minutes to that. Ed Coleman, Mark Bachner, Rhonda Heiter.
Ed Coleman. My wife and I share a guest room in our home of 35 years in Venice as a short-term rental. We support fair and sensible regulation of the short-term rental market. I lost my job 6 years ago and depend on revenue from our guest room as the primary source of our income. This is not a hobby for us. This is our livelihood. It is imperative for our economic survival that you allow us to host 365 days a year. It is also imperative that the registration process be simple and straightforward and the fees modest. The additional fee to lift the proposed 120-day cap must be reasonable and affordable, not the thousands of dollars suggested by the Planning Department in their latest report. The inclusion of a per-night surcharge imposes additional hardship on many hosts for whom this represents a significant portion of their income. Please eliminate these unnecessary and onerous provisions and pass a fair and sensible ordinance that supports responsible home sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I host my RSO, or I host in my RSO property that I live in. I have 2 full-time tenants and converted my extra room into its own studio apartment that I rent out Airbnb. I get that there are companies who are abusing home sharing, but please don't lump us private RSO hosts in with these corporate operators. We are often older and on lower fixed incomes in properties that are also older and require a lot of upkeep. I started my home sharing business to make ends meet. I run my business 12 months a year because my mortgage and other bills come year-round. I recognize that there are some management companies and other corporate interests that use home sharing for greed motives and do so at the expense of everybody else. Please shut them down. Please focus this ordinance on the bad actors. Restrict percentage of listings per address. Restrict number of units per host. Punish illegal evictions, but holding me to 120 days isn't a restriction. It shuts me down after 4 months. Thank you.
Rhonda.
Hello.
Inja Yates, James Yates, and Phil Bennington.
Hi, my name's Rhonda Hayter, and my husband and I have owned a 1928 duplex in the Miracle Mile for 22 years. We've always rented out the upper unit long-term, and we live in the bottom unit. When my kids started college and we started to drown financially, we started Airbnb being one of their bedrooms. We do it because we need to. And to lump people like us into the 120-day RSO thing will not only have cruel repercussions for us, it won't do anything towards putting an RSO unit back on the market because we're already living in it. So please rethink this 120-day cap because it's penalizing people who are not the problem.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Inja Yates. I am a survivor of 2 wars, World War II and Korean War. We bought the house, a 19th house that is rent control. The large part of our living space we do not use. We use for the Airbnb. Money from that Airbnb, we share 7 grandchildren's various educational expenses. We also serve breakfast for our guests from all over the world. The leftover food, we take it to homeless. I know what is the hunger feels like. I was there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. James Yates, Phil Bennington. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm James Yates, and we have a 4-plex in Hollywood. 3 units we use for long-term rental, and the 4th unit we live in. We have extra space in that 4th unit where we use for short-term rentals. And because we have that short-term rentals, we are able to maintain true RSO. We do not raise the rent on our tenants every year because we have the extra money from the Airbnb. We also are able with that money to provide scholarships for students. So far we have given over 35 scholarships at $2,000 each to help students go to college. We also pay our taxes. Over $9,000 has been taken by Airbnb for the city, and another $6,000 for our county taxes. In addition, we have service workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Bennington, not here. Joanne McAuliffe, Martha Maldonado, Michelle Saywell.
Hi. My home is in Venice, and it was built in 1921. Of course, not much still exists from 1921 except the RSO designation. I live on my property. I'm a good host and a good neighbor. I need the Airbnb income to stay in my home. Why should I be penalized or limited to 120 days? Why? Your arbitrary political compromise, which it is, of 120 days makes no sense in the real world. Why not 220? Why not 365? Your arbitrary rule about listing one property and one set of guests at a time also makes absolutely no sense in the real world. I understand your need for a political compromise, but in the real world, I am just trying to keep my home. Putting limits, unfair limits on RSOs will affect my ability to keep my home. I ask the committee drop this unfair regulation and let owner-occupied properties continue to rent 365 days a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Maldonado, right? Not Maldonado.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta Maldonado.
Maldonado,
y
okay.
Mi esposo y yo tenemos una
Can you
propiedad
hold on
que son dos unidades.
Un momento, por favor. Un momento, por favor, porque tenemos que traducir a la gente que oigan lo que está diciendo. Okay. Ahorita va a venir alguien para traducir lo que usted está diciendo. Okay. ¿Usted no habla inglés?
Sí, sí hablo.
¿Pero prefiere español?
Como guste, está bien.
Ok. Puede traducir el señor aquí.
Voy a hablar en español.
Ok, está bien. Does it work? You might want to speak into her microphone after she says. Okay. Cuando usted diga algo, sí. Diga unas poquitas cosas y luego que él diga para la traduzca.
Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta Maldonado y mi esposo y yo tenemos una propiedad de 2 unidades.
Good afternoon, my name is Marta Maldonado, and my husband and I, we have a property with 2 units.
Las 2 unidades se consideran owner-occupied porque mi esposo y yo vivimos en una y mi suegra vive en otra.
The 2 units, they're considered owner-occupied because my husband and I live in one, and my mother-in-law lives in the other one.
En el 2008 yo quedé deshabilitada y nuestro ingreso bajó al 50% el ingreso del hogar.
In 2008, I became disabled and our income dropped to 50%.
Después de algunos años de tener 2 recámaras vacías, decidimos abrir nuestro hogar para compartir con huéspedes.
After having 2 empty rooms, we decided to open our home to welcome guests.
Como verán, nosotros el ingreso que recibimos no lo estamos utilizando para hacernos ricos.
As you see, the income that we receive, we're not using it to become rich.
Solo lo utilizamos para poder mantener el pago de nuestra casa y tener un techo sobre nuestras cabezas.
All we do is use it to pay our mortgage and to have a roof over our heads.
Si me limitan a 120 días por año, eso me va a perjudicar a mí financieramente y tal vez voy a perder mi casa.
If you limit it to 120 days per year, that's going to it was probably going to make me lose my house.
So yo les pido que reconsideren y que nos faciliten este proceso, por favor.
And I will please urge you to facilitate and make this process happen.
Thank you. Michelle, are you here? Saywell? Not here. Linda Lewin. Steve Naksinski. Vanessa Johnson.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Linda Lewin. I am privileged to live in District 11. I bought my home as a single woman 32 years ago, where I raised my special needs daughter who came to live with me as a foster child when she was 6 years old. We are both very dedicated to keeping this spare room in prime condition, as we are proud of our home and our guest room. The income from Airbnb has allowed us to stay in this home and in the 11th District, where my daughter receives services from the Westside Regional Center. I am concerned that the cap of 120 days will prohibit us from staying in our home. The fees and the process to go beyond this cap are unfair. The registration should be simple. Please consider these items when you write the ordinance, especially for those of us who host in our primary residence. We are the good guys.
Commissioner, I'm not sure if you actually called my name.
What's your name?
Pei Wang, W-A-N-G. First name is P-E-I.
No, I have not called your name. Yeah, you're not listed here either. Did you sign up? Did you sign up in the back?
Yes, I did.
Okay. No, we haven't called you, and I don't see your name, and quite frankly, by the time we get through the 20 minutes, we probably won't get to anybody who signs up by now, so thank you.
Is it possible to interject now then?
No, it's not. Other people are waiting. Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Stephen Nishinsky, a homeowner of 25 years in CD3. By simply allowing 2 listings for our primary residence, we can dramatically increase the revenues the city will collect without hurting anyone, but helping many. That's because the design of the proposed ordinance starts by allowing only proven good actors or primary residence hosts the ability to home share. Because of this design and the fact the ordinance has a strong punitive component to breaking the rules, once the ordinance is in place, only responsible hosts will be home sharing. Bad actors will be eliminated. The same good actors only ordinance design can apply to responsible vacation rentals, hosts too. The fear of losing the ability to home share incentivizes good home hosting. Please do not limit those responsibly home sharing.
Thank you. Vanessa Johnson, Alice Walker, Robin C., Peggy S. Welcome.
Vanessa Johnson.
Yep.
Requiring me to pay $1,149 to host 365 days for an additional $5 per night is a harsh burden on my finances. An additional 10% on the $44 million, $4,400,000 fees from contributions and the hotel and the city council. Why do you need to place an additional $1,149 on me just to host 365 days is very harsh and put a burden on me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alice, and I host in Van Nuys and also co-host several homeowners' properties who live and work in Los Angeles. These properties only garner the owners about $55 to $200 a day and are rented out about 60 to 70% of the time. These are not vacation properties. These are their primary residences, which they're renting out in order to pay for medical bills and afford their mortgages. Personally, the income I derive from renting the extra spaces in my own home has afforded me the ability to accomplish my dream of starting a thriving theater company and employing over 30 people. Charging a registration fee of more than a few $100s a year, limiting the amount of days I can host, would put me and several families I host for out of business. I ask that you take some time to discuss the specifics in depth with hosts such as myself so that we may come to a solution which benefits all parties and doesn't further encumber hosts from affording to run their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Cole, CD8. The city has a chance to allow its citizens to be empowered by the tax dollars we contribute via the strong job creator Airbnb. However, we don't want our own contributions and proposed fees to be what bites our heads off or what brings us to slaughter. We have made ourselves available to this council, unlike the privileged few rule maker, rule breaker Kavanaugh types who have abused the system and will suffer no loss for their misdeeds. We hosts want to do our part without the threat of non-existence. Therefore, I pray your fee study, when completed, be fair and equitable, and that existing city employees' duties be expanded as opposed to creating a new expensive department to manage this oversight. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Peggy Sturdivant. I am in South Central Los Angeles, and I'm blessed to have a four-bedroom house that technically I can't afford. And I would like to first tell the committee thank you for referring to us as one's primary residence, and that's the only people I'm speaking for. I agree with you on most of it if you're taking housing away, which I'm not giving up. I want to say thank you to the proposed registrations. $1,149.89 would constitute 25 days of that time just to pay you. I found an honest and a legal hustle to help me keep my home, and if this is passed, I'm feeling stuck up and robbed by the city of LA, and that's a far-fetched idea. If you're going to do that, then hopefully you'll hire a 65-year-old for this new department, and I can get a paycheck, and then I can go along with you robbing and hustling the people that are getting rich off of it. And that way, I can pay my bills, and I'll join the bad guys.
Dashun Allen, Patrick Baca, Michael Palazzolo, John Choi. Welcome.
I'm Patrick Baca, a single-family homeowner in Sherman Oaks. I am a short-term host and grateful for the peace of mind that home sharing continues to give me by stabilizing my income 365 days a year. I pour my earnings right back into improvements, maintenance, and curb appeal of my home. This income helps pay my mortgage, insurance, and hefty city property taxes. I am concerned about your proposed fees and sharing limit caps. I'm here to respectfully ask that you not overly burden, weigh down, and limit the cash flow of those of us who own one home and home share to make ends meet. Please, be gentle and mindful of us, the hardworking, friendly, and accommodating home hosts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I have a single-family home in Sherman Oaks. We have a guest house in the back, and for the last 4 years, we've been renting out that guest house to help it make ends meet. And we have a daughter, and we are raising her there. The problem that I'm having are the excessive fees, 120 days. It really should be 365. And the fee on top of that, if we want to go over, is just, it's just too much. No one's getting rich here. I'm not making that much money to be paying those fees. The $5 a night for the 300 days that I rented, approximately 300 days last year, that's $1,500 more dollars. So when you add all that up, plus everything to make that guest house looking really nice for each and every guest, it's just too much money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John Choi.
Good afternoon, John Choi, Policy Manager for Airbnb. Thank you for another opportunity to discuss this issue. I'd like to start by reiterating the importance of implementing a fair, affordable, and streamlined process to promote compliance and enforceability. I want to start by discussing the issue of fees for both the initial home sharing registration as well as for the extended home sharing permits. Fees should be reasonably attainable for everyday Angelenos. Primary residence hosts, which we're talking about today, are not corporations, and the typical host in LA earns just over $9,000 per year. and fees should be reflective of that. The staff's suggestions for thousands of dollars of fees will simply drive compliance down and hurt the very Angelinos who need this extra income to help make ends meet. Secondly, we ask that you preserve the Planning Commission's recommendation to allow limited home sharing in RSO units. A ban on all RSO units is inherently inequitable. It sends the message to renters that they're second-class citizens that can't participate in the sharing economy because they can't afford to buy a home in Los Angeles. We believe the CPC recommendation for a 129 annual cap on RSO units is a reasonable safeguard to protect tenants in this important housing stock. At minimum, we need clarification on whether individuals and families who own and live in small multifamily housing units, like a duplex, triplex, quad, would be able to rent out a spare bedroom or a guest house in the units they own and live in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. From Council District 11, Tricia Keene.
Good afternoon. Tricia Keene, Deputy Chief of Staff for Councilmember Mike Bonin. As you know, it was over 3 years ago that Councilmember Bonin and Council President Wesson introduced a motion directing the department to prepare an ordinance to regulate short-term rentals. It was about a year earlier that the City Council first began evaluating the impacts of what was then the relatively new sharing economy. A lot of analysis and hard work has been put into this issue since that time, and we cannot thank the Planning Department enough, especially Matt Glesney, for the hours that staff has dedicated to this effort. Council District 11 has one of the highest concentrations of short-term rentals in the city, and many members of the groups who have consistently advocated before your committee on both sides of the issue are CD11 residents. This has been and continues to be a critical issue for our neighborhoods, and people continue to have very legitimate differences of opinion about it. That is why Councilmember Bonin would like to urge you to support once again the approach that was unanimously supported by Plum and Council before it went back to CPC. That approach represented a reasonable compromise that would allow hosts to share their homes subject to regulations that help protect housing stock in the surrounding neighborhoods. One key component of the Council's action was to include a prohibition on short-term rentals in units subject to the city's rent stabilization ordinance. Prohibiting short-term rentals in RSO units was a key part of the motion that was introduced in 2015, and it remains a necessary component for Councilmember Bonin of any ordinance proposed today. The Council member is eager to see home sharing regulations consistent with Council's previous action move forward. Adopting such reasonable regulations would allow good home sharing to take place while bringing online important enforcement staffing and resources for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public speaking. We apologize for those individuals we did not get to. We had a 20-minute limit on each side, and also allowed for CD11 and Councilmember Koretz. So we will now open it up for questions and comments for staff. Mr. Blumenfield?
Great,
No?
thank you. First, a couple of comments and then some questions. First, I'm excited. We're on the verge of finally doing this. This is long overdue. Right now, home sharing is illegal in the city of Los Angeles, and it's time that we legalized it because everyone who's talking today is basically admitting to doing something that's not legal. We want to bring you out of the shadows, and we want you to be able to do this in a legal manner and an appropriate manner. And I think where we came up with last time was an appropriate compromise. As a council, I would be remiss to say if I was not disappointed in most of what happened in the Planning Commission. The issue about making the fees more reasonable, I'm very sympathetic to that aspect. But in terms of the RSO, that opens up a whole new can of worms that will only serve, if we were to go down that road, to delay this further and further and prevent folks from being able to legally operate, which is our goal here, to get folks to legally operate and to have some basic controls on it. So I very much want us to at the moment, keep to our prohibition in terms of RSOs. I am sympathetic to the idea of allowing persons in rent-controlled apartments opportunities down the road, but there are so many opportunities for fraud and a loss of housing that I worry about the way that it's done, and if we want to go down that road, that can be a separate track that we can look into, along with the owner-operator issue. That too, I've got some sympathy for that, but I don't want us to go down that road now because that will only derail the compromise that we have. The other thing that the commission put in, which I just don't get and don't agree with, is adding in the ADU issue. It's one thing, a guest house, what people talked about, and it's your primary residence, that makes a lot of sense if it's a guest house. But when you start talking about an accessory dwelling unit, you're talking about a separate residence. You've gone out of your way to make that into a separate residence, giving it its own kitchen, its own bathroom, its own legal street address. If we take that off the market and carve that out, we are eliminating housing, which is the goal of this, is to not eliminate housing, is to promote housing. In fact, the whole reason why we have so many more ADUs right now is because the state has opened up, and if you look at all the language in the state bills and all the talk about it, the whole purpose of making ADUs easier was to increase the housing stock. And if you don't have the primary residence requirement on an ADU, you're not increasing the housing stock. So I think that is a problem, and I'm going to ask that we make sure that we put that back in along with the RSO ban. In fact, I did want to ask a question on that. I have a few more comments, but do any other cities have this kind of carve-out? Any other major metropolitan areas carve out ADUs?
Well, Councilmember, I'm not aware of any ordinance in any other city that would limit home sharing to primary residences that then carves out and it makes an allowance for ADUs. I'm not aware of that. I can't say I've done a comprehensive survey of all cities in California.
What's the justification for doing something like? I mean, I don't know what it would be, but what would be the justification for that?
Arthi Varma, the justification that the City Planning Commission recommended in its amendment was to allow limited home sharing and accessory structures that may be accessory dwelling units that were built before the new state laws changed. I think it was really to continue a practice that was already occurring.
Okay, because as far as I mean, it's kind of an arbitrary thing, and it seems like it might be pretty hard to enforce, to figure out which is which and all the rest. I think that's just a complication that doesn't make any sense in terms of the primary residence limitation. If you believe in primary residence, then you believe in it. The guest house is one thing, but an ADU is a separate residence, is it not?
That's correct. It's an actual dwelling unit.
Okay. The Special Assistance Fund to address the negative impacts, what is that, and how is that money going to be spent?
Arthi Varma, Planning Department. So a special assistance fund to address negative impacts, that was a request from the Planning Land Use Committee when we were here back in April. There was a request to have fees that were generated from this to go to amelioration of potential negative impacts. In our staff report, previous staff report that we sent to the Commission on September 13th, there was a recommendation for a mechanism how that would be distributed across the different council offices, and it would be correlated to the impact, the impact of activity in those various council offices. It was a proposal.
Okay. Another sort of kind of on the random question: how quickly can the enforcement mechanisms of this ordinance be up and running? Is there enough time for adequate staffing of the program? Does the item include a budget request?
So in the previous Plum direction, there was a direction to staff to report back on the enforcement and administrative activities that would be needed associated with this ordinance. We provided that report back, and the report back included 5 staff people that would be needed for the initial registration, and depending on the additional enforcement after the 120 days, the extended home sharing, what we're calling it, depending on the level of that activity, there would be additional staff required as well.
That would be in the budget. That would come up. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, can the speaker speak into the microphone? People are having a hard time to hear. And also, the audio guy is not here, so we can't fix that. You're going to have to speak into the microphone as closely as you can. Thank you.
And back to the ADU issue in terms of when we deal with the vacation rental, is that not something that could be brought up as part of the vacation rental discussion?
Arthi Varma with the Planning Department. The accessory dwelling unit issue could be evaluated as part of the vacation rental ordinance.
Okay. I have a few other questions, but I'll pass the mic for the moment.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Back to you, Mr. Blumenfield.
All right, then. The Nexus study required per night, what is the current expected rate? And do we have discretion in the council in terms of setting it?
So Arthi Varma from the Department of City Planning, the direction was to work with the CAO's office to prepare a per night fee in order to determine what that amount would be. The fee would have to be correlated with the cost of services related to administration and enforcement. In the staff recommendation to the City Planning Commission, a fee study was recommended in order to determine what that fee would be.
And then would we have discretion as a council? So if the fee is set at a certain amount, could we change that?
The council has discretion to establish a fee. Any fee that is below the cost of providing those services, administration and enforcement services, would require a subsidy if it was not fully matching the work that was associated with that, if the intent is to be a full cost recovery.
Okay. And then in the staffing report, the range of staffing went from 500,000 to 2 million. It seemed kind of broad. What's the factors that are causing it to be so broad?
Sure. This is Arthi Varma with the Planning Department. The range for the staffing is related to the anticipated number of cases for the extended home sharing. We don't know how many extended home sharing cases applications will be submitted, so the range of 500 to 2 million was dependent on the number of staff required associated with those extended home sharing applications.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm excited. I think we need to move forward with a reasonable ordinance to put in place this framework. We've all longed to do that. It's going to make us a much more orderly city. It's going to make this work, although there are areas I think could be improved in this ordinance. I certainly don't want us to send this back to commission. I want us to basically remove the things that we don't want, but not create any additional issues, because I know we're going to relook at some of these issues down the road. So we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. And especially if Proposition 10 passes, that also may change the dynamic with regard to RSOs as well. So I'm very cautious of going down that road before we know what happens and what the bigger issues are with RSOs. So with that, Mr. Chair, I know you have some amendments, and I'm also going to ask that we remove the ADU provision that was put in by the commission.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bloomfield. And just a question for the planning staff. I understand that the inclusion of the RSO units may impact the ordinance's environmental clearance. Is that correct?
Arthi Varma, the Department of City Planning. Yes, that is correct. The inclusion of RSO units in the ordinance would require us to revise the environmental analysis, which would be a multi-month effort to prepare a new initial study.
Okay, and do you have any insight into how the inclusion of the RSO units might impact the rent stabilized market? Have we done that analysis? You mentioned that earlier in your opening remarks, I think.
Matt Kolesny, Planning Department. Prior reports had tried to quantify the impact of home sharing and short-term rental market on the RSO market. It's difficult. We don't have access to all the data we would need to do, I think, the kind of precise work we'd like. I believe we came down an estimate of about 6,000 to 10,000 units being potentially taken off the market, and I believe, I can't remember what the percentage of those were RSO. I'm sorry, I'd have to consult my report. But,
okay, so you don't have that analysis now. I mean, that's part of the whole analysis if we include them, right? Did you have this analysis before CPC when they made the decision?
part of our Arthi Varma Department of City Planning, part of that analysis on the environmental will include more precise numbers on the RSO units that would be affected.
So in other words, when the CPC made the decision, there was no analysis before them, correct?
That's correct. We did not have that information available at CPC.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I certainly believe that the RSO units provide a much-needed source of affordable housing for our most vulnerable residents, and it's an important tool for keeping our communities intact, so we certainly do not want to disturb that. And also, on the issue of enforcement, certainly none of this works without enforcement. We need a 24/7 hotline for complaints, real-time outreach to hosts, coordination between our various enforcement agencies, and relevant information about properties in being shared to the platforms. In my motion, I would ask for some additional report backs on that, because I think although we may be adopting the ordinance today, there's just some additional administrative work that we need to do. So I'll be requesting several report backs on some administrative functions on how we will actually implement this ordinance. I just want to conclude by saying that I want to thank this committee, and I want to thank Councilmember Bonin and Council President Wesson for bringing it forward, but in particular this committee for the hard work you've done. We've met on this item 6 times already, and there's been a lot of testimony. I recall that one of the first times we heard this, we actually had swarms of people outside that we had to put some televisions outside for people to testify outside. It's the first time we've ever done that, so there's been a lot of interest in this. We certainly want to move forward. I think we've come to a place where we've tweaked it enough, some final changes that need to be made, but it's time that we move forward. I'll make a motion unless somebody else has some questions or comments or anything. Okay. So I'll request that the city attorney prepare and present the ordinance as amended by this committee, adopt the changes recommended by staff, adopt the findings and CEQA clearance, and amend the language from the CPC action to state as follows. 1, reinstate the prohibition of RSOs as a use not permitted in this ordinance. 2, not move forward with a lengthy fee study that may further burden hosts and impede the city's enforcement goals. 3, reduce application fees from $1,100 to approximately $850 for those requesting to host beyond the stated 120-day limit. 4, Planning Department to report back by November 30th of this year with options to further incentivize maximum participation and compliance by platforms, including those incentives that could be incorporated within platform sharing agreements. Planning staff is further instructed to engage platforms directly to identify the most appropriate set of incentives. And 5, Planning Department to report back by November 30th of this year with the assistance of the Office of City Attorney and CEO with details regarding the web-based enforcement system, including all of the pertinent service components and anticipated implementation timeline. So I'd like to make that motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Yeah, well, I'll second that.
You'll second that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll offer a friendly amendment, which is the addition of a 6 to move that we remove the language and version transmitted to us by CPC allowing the use of ADUs for short-term rentals without a primary residence built before January 1/17.
Okay, we will make that a separate vote, not accept as a friendly, and make that a separate vote, if that's okay? Okay. City Attorney, should we vote on Mr. Blumenfield's first or the main motion?
You can vote on the main motion first.
Let's vote on the main motion. Okay. So the motion has been made by the chair. Before I do that, Mr. Mejia, anything else on the motion that I need to, with respect to technicalities, that I need to add to that? We're requesting City Attorney to prepare and present the ordinance, adopt the findings and CEQA clearance. Anything else?
I think you cover everything, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. So we will vote on this item. Anybody object to the main motion? No objections to the main motion? Okay, so ordered on that main motion. Mr. Blumenfield, do you have a motion to make?
Yes, it would be to add a 6th amending language, which is to move that we remove the language and version transmitted to us by CPC, which allowed the use of ADUs for short-term rentals without a primary residence if built before January 1, 2017.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? There's no second to that motion. Okay, thank you. We will file that motion for lack of a second. Any other questions or comments on this item before we move on? No? Okay. Thank you, and thank you as well to the Planning Department for your hard work. We appreciate all the work you've been doing on this as well. Thank you. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Mejia.
As amended now? Jose, don't we have to now vote on it as amended for the final vote? We voted on the amendment, but now we haven't voted on the final.
Oh, do we have to vote on the final?
I would ask them, but I would assume we would.
Yeah, City Attorney, a question's been made by Mr. Blumenfield that we voted on the motion as amended. Does that mean, then do we have to go back and vote on the full item as a second vote?
I'm sorry, your motion covered the recommendations as amended by the committee today.
The motion stated that we were adopting the CPC action as amended by the following 5 items.
Okay, so we don't have to do it again.
No, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, we will allow for a 2-minute break here while we allow these individuals to exit who are here on this item and allow the overflow to come in. You're trying to amend something that we...
Wait, so what happened? What do you...
We voted to amend the whole thing, as Jose asked for.
Yeah, right.
And then he wanted my amendment to be the second amendment.
So he asked for it as a second amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we hadn't voted.
And then we voted it down.
Yeah, because we voted on the whole thing
I
already.
didn't get a second or whatever, but then we had to go back and pass what we actually amended.
But your motion could have been to amend.
No, it's
it's a technicality.
technicality. You could do it both ways. By the way, it doesn't even kill your motion. You could actually still bring it to council, not as a motion, but as a minority report.
Yeah. No, I mean, but, and I'm not really worried about some of those, just sort of as an
Well, you could actually go both ways. You're right, but you could go either way. Either way is correct.
Because why would we have voted on the as adopted if we hadn't finished all the amendments? You have to go back and keep voting on it as amended. You amend the document, and then when it's fully, all the amendments are done, you vote on it up or down.
You're right. We've done it like that most of the time. Taken all the amendments or motions, you vote on those, and then you vote on the final product.
Right.
Yeah, so it did it a bit either way.
City attorney blessed it's fine, but I would have.
That doesn't mean it's correct. Yeah. Okay, we will move on the agenda.
Sure.
We just completed item 13. We will now move to item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a Cultural Heritage Commission report relative to the inclusion of the Wynn Apartments.
Can you speak into the microphone, please, Mr. Mejia? It's hard to hear here.
Yes, item 5, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission to include the Wynn Apartments as a historic cultural monument.
Okay. Staff report, please, on this item.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. The Wynn Apartments are a 4-story, 32-unit apartment building located on Oceanfront Walk in Venice. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation was unanimous and found that the nomination met 2 of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. First, for its association with early 20th century leisure tourism in Venice, and secondly, having been built in 1921 as a rare example, remaining example of a 1920s apartment house in Venice. Happy to answer any question.
Thank you. We'll go to public speakers now. David Ewing, you spoke already, sir. Where is he? Mr. Ewing, in the future, we take people who have signed up to speak on more than 2 items in the front of the meeting, but we'll allow you to speak this time, but it's usually if you're speaking more than 2 items, you speak in the beginning of the whole meeting. That's the multiple item.
Oh,
Yeah, but go ahead.
There had been a rule change on that.
After David Ewing is Margaret Malloy.
So, hello, Plum members again. My name is David Ewing. This is indeed a historic building, but it is and always has been an apartment house, not an apartment hotel. That may seem a minor distinction unless you realize Mr. Lambert has been trying to use historic means to convert his RSO building into a hotel. He's gotten rid of most of his tenants and has fraudulently operated and falsely advertised as a hotel for years without a permit or required safety measures. His own historic documentation conclusively shows that it is and always has been designated an apartment house, not a hotel, nor an apartment hotel. He has no evidence otherwise. By all means, give this building monument designation, but make it clear that it is not for an apartment hotel. Do not aid his effort to circumvent zoning and tenant protections by substituting an imaginary historical use. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Margaret Malloy.
Somebody left a phone here. Hello.
One second.
This
1 second. Can the Sergeant of Arms get that phone? And if somebody left a phone on the podium,
yeah, there's a.
we will have it here. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Margaret Malloy. I'm with a group called Save Venice. We have asked multiple times for postponement of this hearing pending CPRA review. Mr. Lambert is a serial violator of land use issues in Venice. These are 5 entire buildings that he's converted from RSO to illegal hotels, de facto hotels, and he is being cited by the city attorney for this very building, 417 Oceanfront Walk. We completely challenged the historical report. This man came before the neighborhood council in Venice twice already, was rejected both times under the historic research for Biltmore by the Sea. The particular Wynn apartment research he submitted has a footnote saying, owner says that there was a sign for Biltmore by the Sea on his building when he bought it, but there are 0 documents to substantiate that. That's not what we call thorough vetting. There were 29 permits issued for this apartment house. 29. No hotel.
Okay, thank you.
We ask you to postpone.
Is the applicant here and the appellant, the owner appellant, or the owner applicant, Carl Lambert, are you here?
Carl Lambert is not actually here, but I am with representation.
You're with who?
The representative.
Okay, do you wish to speak?
I can touch base, but 417 Oceanfront Walk is a historic building. It's been in existence since 1920. The apartment was interchanged from a hotel to apartment house throughout its history, and this is indicated in the historic permits that we have found. And we do want to preserve the historic character of this building, and we do believe that its historic designation is an appropriate matter in this case. And I'm happy to answer any concerns or questions.
Okay, great, thank you. So staff, you recommended, what's your recommendation again?
Yes, the staff recommendation and the unanimous recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Commission was that this is eligible for historic cultural monument status based on 2 criteria. And I did just want to mention that the historic designation in no way is prescriptive as to a particular use, or whether it's designated or not does not speak to how the building has been used historically or would be used prospectively.
Okay, good. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move to approve the historical nomination and adopt the findings and recommendations from the previous action. Any objection? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Next item, number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Montecito as a historic cultural monument.
Staff?
Again, Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. The Montecito is a 1930 10-story apartment building in Hollywood at Franklin Avenue and Cherokee Avenue. The building is today already individually listed in the California Register of Historical Resources and the National Register of Historic Places. The Cultural Heritage Commission unanimously recommended approval of designation under one of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria as an excellent example of an apartment building in the Art Deco architectural style.
Thank you. We'll go to public speakers. Fred Gaines.
Councilmember, Adrian Corzani, City Attorney's Office. I understand that Council District 13 has some comments that should be considered before public comment.
Okay, Councilor District 13.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock, and I'm with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. The Council office supports the addition of the Montecito to the city's historic cultural monument list, but with an amendment to the scope of the designation to exclude the parking lot, garden, and other open areas on the site outside the four walls of the Montecito building. This motion is based on the findings set forth in the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation letter dated September 18th of 2018 that concluded that while the garden is an attractive amenity for current residents, it was constructed as part of a rehabilitation project in the 1980s and does not appear to rise to the level of meeting the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria as representation of mid-century modern landscape design. And there are no findings or facts supporting the designation of the parking lot. Based on these findings, the City Council should determine that the HCM application does not provide sufficient evidence to support the inclusion of the adjacent garden or parking lot to the HCM designation, and thus moves to adopt the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation to designate the Montecito with a modification to exclude the parking lot and garden area. Thank you.
Fred Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. Fred Gaines with the Law Offices of Gaines and Stacy. I'm here today on behalf of Thomas Safran and Associates. They have a pending application for a 68-unit, 100% affordable housing development for seniors at 6650 Franklin. This is known as the Montecito II Project. That project is proposed for a portion of the adjacent Montecito, the project that's being asked for this designation, which has 118 units, which Thomas Safran has completely restored and made into the senior center that it is. We're concerned that this is a late hit application. On our application for the 68 units that are going onto what is a garden area adjacent to the Montecito, this is after full historic resources report prepared and reviewed by OHR. Our CEQA review was done, and we actually had our first public hearing. Then we're called in to designate this property with a specific effort made now to include the garden so that our project will be delayed or caused, or a problem would be caused with that project. This garden, by the way, did not exist at the time that the Montecito was originally built. In fact, your own staff found that the garden was constructed as part of a rehabilitation project in the 80s, does not appear to rise to the level of meeting Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. So the effort here, look, my client took the historic Montecito, refurbished it, turned it into senior affordable housing. Now they want to do a 68-unit project on a property that has never been part of the historic designation for the state and federal historic designations for the other site. They want to make it part of it on an area that specifically was found not to be historic, in an effort to sort of sweep us up into additional regulation when we're in the middle of a permitting process on the new 68 unit project. The language that has been suggested by the council office is helpful. It would be more helpful if you decided not to designate it at this time. You could wait till after our project is built and designated and not open up additional avenues for challenge to this project that this city badly needs, that is well supported throughout the community, as opposed to allowing once again the Cultural Heritage Ordinance to be misused as part of a anti-development effort on this particular project. So we would love for you to delay making this decision or deny it without prejudice this time. However, if you are going to make this designation, we ask that you make it clear that it exclude the grounds, gardens, and parking area, and that the City Council make clear its intent that this designation will not be used to delay or prevent approval of the Montecito II project, which, as I mentioned, already had it in its initial hearing and is close to going forward for approval of 68 fully affordable new senior units, extremely needed in our community. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear us today.
Thank you. Tyler Monroe.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tyler Monroe. I'm the Vice President of Development for Thomas Safran and Associates. We're here this evening because we've been working for a number of years on a project called the Montecito II, a 68-unit affordable housing project for low-income seniors in Hollywood. We have an existing portfolio of about 400-plus units of affordable housing in Hollywood now. We know that the need for affordable housing in the area is very necessary. And this project received almost near unanimous support from the Neighborhood Council on a 15-1 vote. This current nomination came at the end of a very long CEQA process, which is designed to really slow down or stop what is a really important affordable project in this area. We would encourage you, at a minimum, to agree with the proposed language by the council office and enable this important affordable project for seniors to proceed expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Travis, Celeste Hong.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Travis, and I am a managing partner with Historic Resources Group, and we are consultants to the property owner. We did prepare the historic analysis, CEQA analysis for the project that's just been discussed, and found that the project would not result in significant impacts to historic resources under CEQA. And just to reiterate what the other three speakers have said, the land that is currently occupied by a garden patio is not original to the Montecito Apartments building. It was actually acquired by the Montecito some 3 decades after the Montecito was opened and constructed. It was at that time paved and used as a surface parking lot, and it wasn't until the mid-1980s that it was the garden was created as part of the conversion to affordable housing for seniors. So that parcel, or that area of the property, does not contain anything that is contributing or character defining. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Kelly, Kathleen Larson.
Celeste Hong, Vice President of the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles. We are the applicant on this project. The garden is a red herring. All we're asking Plum to do is to designate the Montecito as for its, on a local level, to its national registry standards. The footprint of the original designation did not even include a garden. All it said is the original site. There are other issues at hand. The staff report that is being referred to currently is the incorrect staff report. The CHC then did a walkthrough and issued another staff report. There are other issues involved in this beyond the issue of housing. It is just a red herring to bring up both the garden and housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Kelly, Montecito resident. Please don't be fooled by the owner's representatives who ignore the unanimous Cultural Heritage Commission's decision. The Commission incorporated the national state designation identifying the entire property in that decision as described in the 1985 designation form. The city must honor the entire property without reservations. Picture the Hollywood sign. How about we honor just a part of it? Let's say the consonants. No, we honor the whole sign and its property. The city council needs to follow the national state designation. They've already done all of the due diligence. Unfortunately, the owner's representatives prefer arguments from a discarded preliminary report. There's a public record. The Montecito is an integral part of the historical Hollywood. The Academy Awards are right down the street. People from all over the world come there. Now it's time for LA to honor what the nation and the state has already honored. The entire Montecito property is a cultural historical monument. Thank you.
Kathleen Larson, Friends of the Montecito. The owner's representative is 33 years too late. It was designated as a National Historical Monument 33 years ago in 1985, and it was the entire property, the whole enchilada. Also, on that commission report, there were 2 items that were deemed historical. 2, not 1. They are using the wrong early preliminary thing. So please, do not be intimidated, deceived, or misled. This is about having the historical designation. It is not about a plum for the project itself, and it is wrong to use this particular forum to do that, especially with inaccurate, misleading facts. Thank you.
Marcella Glover, Logan Johnson, Andrea Castillo.
Hello, my name is Marcella Glover. I'm a resident of the Montecito and have been for 14 years. I really enjoy living at the Montecito. While I'm not looking forward to losing our garden, I am more interested in there being more affordable housing in the city of Los Angeles, specifically in Hollywood. So I would ask that you would please continue on with this and not delay this project so other people can have affordable living. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Andrea Castillo. I'm a resident of Montecito Apartments for 7 years. I thank Montecito Apartments for providing affordable housing for low-income seniors. With little pension, I cannot afford the ridiculous high rent in Los Angeles. I request the City Hall not to delay the process to build the Montecito II for low-income senior. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Logan Johnson. I'm a resident at Montecito. I appreciate the fact that you give us a platform to come and speak with you. I'm personally not looking forward to living on a construction site for 2 years. That's personal and has nothing to do with historic monuments and has nothing to do with building and so forth. As a resident, dust collects, and I'm able-bodied enough to move that dust out of the way, to get that dust off the windows and off the window sill. But there are people at the Montecito who are not. So however you decide, we will have to deal with it. I want to thank you very much for allowing me this time.
Julia Kananshvili, Vladimir Oife, Dominique Pescarino.
Hello, I'm Julia Kananshvili. I'm resident of Montecito, and I'm supporting two project Montecito, and we agree with Marcella.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vladimir. I am resident of Montecito. I am supported Montecito II project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dominic.
I live at the Montecito. I've been there for 21 years. I agree with what Marcella said.
Thank you. Jeff Walters, Craig Bullock, Dennis Luna.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I support what Marcella and Logan have said. Construction's not going to take forever at that place, so I have no problem with construction going on, and please keep Montecito a historical site. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis Luna, Charles Fisher, Annie Gagan.
Good afternoon, dear Plum Committee members. My name is Dennis Luna. Please support the Cultural Historic Committee's designation of the Montecito Apartments as a city historical landmark. Both the federal and state declared that the entire Montecito property and a historic landmark in 1985. In the latest edition of Discover Hollywood, Fall 2018, the Montecito is listed as one of Hollywood's places of interest. It is one of the tourist must-visit places. As a new resident of the Montecito, I enjoy living in this historic piece of real estate. It allows me to step back in time and feel a connection with the legends of Hollywood past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Charlie Fisher, 140 South Avenue 57, Highland Park. First off, I'm representing the Art Deco Society, the proponent in this particular thing, and I think we should probably have more than a minute on that, because I need to address some of the things that were said by the representative for the Saffrons.
Yeah, you're the owner. The Art Deco Society is...
Art Deco Society is proponent, and I'm representing them.
Okay. Yeah, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, I don't need 5 minutes, but I want to discuss nobody's arguing the criteria of the building. It is an Art Deco monument. It has been designated by both state and national level. The argument is the extent of that designation. The original designation, and I will read the designation right off the National Register. Lot 11 and the north half of Lot 12, Block 2 of the Hollywood Ocean View Tract, City of Los Angeles, County of Los Angeles. The property is a 150-foot by 225-foot parcel at the southwest corner of Franklin and Cherokee Avenues. That is the extent of the national and state designation. All we're asking is that this designation be identical in scope, in footprint to that designation. The garden, as Celeste said a little bit ago, is a red herring. We did ask for the garden initially. It was turned down by the commission. Although we accept that decision, the garden was no longer on the agenda, yet they decided to add it back to the agenda to throw everything off. All we're asking is that the designation concur with the state and federal designation, and that is the entire site. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Annie Gagan.
Hi, I'm Annie Gagan. I'm a 40-year resident of Hollywood, and I live near the Montecito. I support the Cultural Heritage Commission and the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles historic designation for the Montecito. I urge you to respect the recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Commission to respect all of the boundaries of the historic cultural monument. I don't know what city would have a historical cultural monument and then cut out a piece of that property or a lot to designate it another historic designation. It makes absolutely no sense. I support the Friends of the Montecito. Most of them are the residents from the Montecito who have not been offered any deals to show up here today, who have heart issues and health issues and have not been able to come to the hearings. You have their letters. I represent them today. I stand behind them, and I'm doing this in honor of Katie Arce, who lost her life to a stroke in her effort to protect her beloved Montecito. Thank you.
Okay. Concludes public comment. Any questions or comments? Staff, do you wish to add anything after what you've heard from public testimony?
Thank you again, Ken Bernstein with Office of Historic Resources, Department of City Planning. I think, as you've heard, there seems to be consensus around the eligibility of the Montecito for historic cultural monument status, but obviously a disagreement as to the scope of the designation. It was the original staff recommendation to the Cultural Heritage Commission that the garden, while an attractive amenity currently, was added in the 1980s and itself was not a character-defining feature of the property or representation of mid-century modern landscape design as had been initially asserted. The Cultural Heritage Commission, however, was persuaded by some of the testimony you heard today that the designation should more closely mirror the National Register designation that had been made in the 1980s. So they did not accept the staff recommendation, and also has been the practice of the Cultural Heritage Commission to designate the entirety of the property. So that was what led to the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation, but you've also heard the recommendation from the Council Office to limit the scope of the designation to the building itself.
Okay. And CD13, can you restate your recommendation?
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. Our recommendation is that the Montecito be designated just the four walls, excluding the garden, the parking lot, and any other open space that's on the site.
Okay. So, any questions or comments? We'll move to approve the item with the changes as recommended by Council District 13. Any objections to that? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, we will now move to item number 3.
Item 3, Councilman, this is a Planning Commission report. It's a vesting zone change along with an appeal filed by Carlos Montes as to the conditional use permit for the public charter elementary school in CD 14.
Okay. Staff here on this item?
Good afternoon, Lillian Rubio, staff for the Department of City Planning. The project before you today is a 41,088 square foot K through 4th public elementary charter school building in Boyle Heights, operated by KIPP. KIPP Promesa Prep is an approved LAUSD school that currently operates out of 2 locations. The applicant is proposing to consolidate and relocate the school to the property near the intersection of Soto Street and 4th Street. The request will enable the school to increase enrollment and expand the grade levels offered, as well as provide amenities typical of an elementary school. To give you some history of the project, on August 31st, 2018, City Planning Commission approved the request for the conditional use, recommended the approval of a vesting zone change, as well as adopted the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring program. Before you today is a vesting zone change in addition to an appeal of the conditional use filed on September 19, 2018. The appeal states that the environmental analysis was flawed with regard to traffic, air quality, greenhouse gases, noise, and parking, and that the proposed project is not consistent with the general plan. The department maintains that our environmental analysis was adequate and have responded to all appeal points, which was uploaded to the council file. Staff would like to highlight a few. First off, it's important to mention that most of the appeal points are based on the incorrect assumptions regarding the baseline conditions analyzed per CEQA. The project site is developed with the vacant hospital building. The hospital was in operation through the end of 2017. Therefore, it represented the baseline from which the project's environmental analysis was determined. Moving on, with regards to traffic, a traffic study dated September 29, 2017 was prepared, reviewed, and approved by our Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation's approval letter dated April 25, 2018 was referenced in the M&D to conclude that the traffic analysis for the proposed project is adequate with the imposition of a traffic mitigation program. Lastly, the recommended vesting zone change before you would remove a permanent queue condition limiting the site for hospital use, which would make the site consistent with the general plan and land use designation of the surrounding area. In affirming the City Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the proposed project along with the requested vesting zone change and conditional use, the use of the site as a school will conform to the general plan. Therefore, the appellant's argument that the school is inconsistent with the general plan is addressed through the findings of approval of the project. With all that said, staff recommends denial of the appeal and to sustain the action of the City Planning Commission. Staff is available for any questions if you may have some. Thank you.
So there was a hearing. Was there a zoning administrator hearing on this? No, it was a CUP, right? So
That's correct. No ZA hearing.
no ZA hearing. Went straight to, on the appeal, so it was approved by the planning department,
Lillian Ruby, yes, it was approved by City Planning Commission.
by the city. It was approved by the city planning. Can you go over the procedural status of this, please?
Good afternoon. This is Courtney Shum with City Planning. The entitlements before you include the vesting zone change and the conditional use. The initial decision maker on those requests is the City Planning Commission. Prior to the City Planning Commission, staff holds a hearing officer hearing where we take testimony from the public. And then based on that testimony, staff prepares a recommendation report to the City Planning Commission, and that's what they base their decision on.
Okay, and at the officer who took in testimony recommended approval, then went to the Citywide Planning Commission, and it was appealed at the same time, right? So,
The City Planning Commission recommended approval of the project. They approved the conditional use, and they recommended approval to Plum Committee and City Council to approve the zone change. Okay. So what's been appealed is the conditional use. Okay. And the zone change is before you as a legislative action.
Okay, because that's not unappealable, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we'll go to public comment first, and the first speakers are the appellants, Carlos Montes. You have 5 minutes.
Chairman Huizar. Dean Walraff, I'm an attorney for the appellants. Quick question on a point of order. There are we have a neighborhood council representative from the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council who opposes the project. Does she have to fit within our time, or would the neighborhood council?
She would be separate, yeah.
Separate time?
Yeah, separate time.
And also there are two appellants. One is Central CSO and the other is Carlos Montes. Do we get 5 minutes each?
Are those on the record, two appellants?
They are.
Okay.
Was it one appeal filed by two appellants, or it's one appeal?
It's one appeal. So if it's one appeal, you get 5 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So if it's okay with you, I'll take first 2 minutes and then turn it over to Mr. Montes.
You could use the 5 minutes as you wish. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So good afternoon, council members. I'm Dean Walraff, Advocates for the Environment, attorney for the appellants. I'm a CEQA attorney, so I'm going to talk mostly about environmental issues, but there is a lot of community opposition, as you'll see. You have the discretion to deny this project, basically deny the CUP. With the right findings, you would not be subject to any kind of legal challenge if you did that. So if you decide it's not in the interest of the public, you have the discretion to deny the project. There are a number of potentially significant environmental impacts which will not be reduced below a level of significance by the measures that are approved in the MND. On October 26th, the LA Unified School District submitted a letter containing a number of additional issues that should be considered before the project is approved. And also on October 26th, there was a new version of the traffic study. It turns out that the traffic study included in the original MND, which was circulated to the public, was the wrong version. And so it was just a few days ago when the correct one was posted to the council file site. It's 115 pages. I just saw it last night when I, when I came across it. So we haven't had time to review it, and we would like the determination to be postponed for that reason. The most egregious environmental problem on the site is a queue of cars. 400 students a day, elementary students, will be dropped off in cars. That's the estimate. And those cars will wait in a line to get access. That will cause a lot of idling cars, and the air quality impacts of that have not been analyzed. And now I'll turn over the rest of my time to Mr. Montes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Wisada. Obviously, we're here to oppose what we call the Mega KIP charter school in Bow Heights. It will cause major problems to not only traffic, but pollution, noise, and damage the local public schools. I want to point out that I live 2 blocks away from the site. I attended Hollenbeck Middle School, graduated, and went to Roseville, so I'm very familiar with the area. And the original plan of KIP from ESSA was to move 125 students. Now they come up with this major plan of 625 students. This is why we call it a mega KIP charter school, right? I want to point out that they intend to enter through Breed Street. You're familiar with Breed Street because several years ago you put in a traffic light because there was an accident on Breed and 4th Street right next to the Salesian Family Center, right? Now, Bridge Street is a very narrow residential street. It's always full of parked cars. I don't know how they intend to channel all these hundreds of cars to drop off the children, considering that we also have the Smart and Final on the corner. We have the Carl's Hamburgers. We have the market there and the gas station. So this is going to be tremendous traffic, pollution, and noise. It's not going to be possible to get those children in and out. And they propose that site because they obviously know that Soto is a major hazard, major traffic, right? So I already pointed out that there's so much activity going on there that you're familiar with the markets, the boys club, the family center. I also want to point out that a mega charter school will have devastating long-term damage to the local public schools because Breeze Street is already a block away, already has an Xterra charter school on site. And you know that we have 2nd Street School, Utah Street School, and also Soto Street School in Sheridan, where this mega KIP Promesa intends to siphon up those students. So they're lying to the public. Originally they said 125, now they want 625. So in closing, we know that the air quality in Bow Heights is polluted, and you know because you live there, we have lead, we have et cetera. Now all these cars and traffic will just cause more pollution. So in closing, we would prefer to have affordable housing, a new public library, or a park. Thank you very much. I hope that you please vote to deny this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're gonna, if you could hold off, please. We're gonna first go with the applicant, and then we'll come back to you. What's your name?
Sol Marquez.
Marisol
Marquez.
Okay.
And I'm with the Boa Heights Neighborhood Council.
Okay, we'll go back to you after we hear from the. Did you sign up to speak as well?
Yes.
Are you listed?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm on there.
You're on there. Okay. Vasquez, you said?
No, Marquez.
Marquez. Okay. We'll go to you right after the applicant speaks, because that's how we usually do it. People who appeal, and then the applicant, and then we go to neighborhood councils and everybody else. So we'll go to the applicant first, and then we'll go back to you. So you are listed. I have the applicant as Barry Sherman and Representative Armin Ross, but you are going to represent them?
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Alfred Freiholm, counsel for the applicant.
Okay, so you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for your attention, and council members very much appreciate the attention you've given to the matters before you today. I will be brief. Our request is for the denial of the appeal, and we support the recommendation of staff. We appreciate staff's time spent on the project, as well as the attention to the appeal that was presented and the arguments that were presented as well. As part of the record, we've transmitted a correspondence to staff and to this body, fully addressing the unsubstantiated arguments that were raised by the appellants. I simply want to summarize With regards to the points that have already been mentioned and are fully documented in correspondence before you, here the applicant is intending to consolidate two existing campuses, TK through fourth grade students, and relocate them in the project site. The idea is, in concept, is a consolidation of two schools to improve both the service of education as well as the operation. The project itself consists of the redevelopment of a site that has been underutilized for a significant period of time. The new school will be a valuable addition to the community in an underutilized area. The prior hospital on the site ended operation some time ago, and the city recently deemed the site a nuisance in March 2018. The development of the site with a much-needed educational facility will enhance both the physical aspects of the facility as well as increase the benefits to the community. We have a number of organizations from the community that have been supporting the project from the very inception. Many of those letters have been submitted for the record, and many of the constituents representing those organizations are with us today. In the interest of time, we're only presenting a couple of those speakers before you to provide their own testimony, and we'll only include 8 individuals that will speak in support. However, we have over 100 individuals that represent KIPP, the community of Boyle Heights, and the organizations that support the project before you today to indicate their unanimous support and encourage this body to both deny the appeal and also support the recommendation of staff. I want to simply highlight that the appellant has not produced any documentation outside of basis arguments to be able to substantiate the arguments regarding the impacts that they claim were not analyzed. What we've done on a voluntary basis is supplemented the record with technical data that specifically rebuts the arguments that were raised by the appellants in their letter. With regards to the claim that the traffic study was not circulated, let me be clear. The conclusions and the data that are part of that traffic study were in fact included as part of the M&D, were circulated for public comment, and were incorporated in the conclusions that are before you today by staff. In conclusion, I want to again thank you for your time, encourage you to continue to support the project. I want to again thank staff, and we again indicate the support that's before you today. We have parents that have been waiting several hours, and we have a bus that is going to be leaving around 5 o'clock, so we would appreciate the courtesy of their testimony before the appellant's speakers as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Marisol Vasquez.
It's Marquez, not Vasquez. Okay, thank you, and I'm part of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, so I don't think a minute, right? I think it's different than a minute.
Is there a item on file?
There's no community impact statement on file for this
You have to have a community impact statement.
I have one with me.
Can you give it to our clerk, please?
Yes.
And if you want to hold off, we could make that determination, or you could wait. I'll take a few speakers and then see. You have 3 minutes if, in fact, it's accurate. So you want to hold off? I'll take a few speakers and then I'll take you back.
Sure.
Okay. So once the clerk determines that the neighborhood council member will have 3 minutes. Luis Molina, Jessica Castillo, Aldo Macias. What we're going to do in the interest of time as well is we're going to take 20 minutes for each side, considering we have over 60 speakers and we have some council members that need to leave. And we still have an agenda, a few items on the agenda. So we'll go first with these people, and then we'll take 20 minutes on the other side.
In the interest of time, Kip will call 8 speakers. May I just list their names?
Have they all signed up to
They've
speak?
all signed up.
And you guys would, these are people for the proposal. That means you will forfeit the 20 minutes and just take the 8 minutes?
Exactly.
Okay.
Adriana Rodriguez, Rosa Vera Topete, Sincere Hernandez, Adriana Rodriguez, Rosa Vera Topete, Sincere Hernandez, Denise Villamil, Jesus Perez, Ana de la Torre, Evelyn Flores, and Myra Salazar.
Good afternoon. My name is Adriana Rodriguez, and I'm the founding school leader of Que Promesa Prep. I am here today to ask for your support of our plans to reunite our school on one permanent campus in Boyle Heights. Que Promesa is an existing elementary school in Boyle Heights that is part of the KIPP LA Public Schools network. Today, we operate on 2 temporary sites and currently serve grades TK through 3rd grade. By next year, we will serve grades TK through 4th grade. KIPP LA has a long and positive history in the Boyle Heights community. KIPP LA Prep has been in Boyle Heights since 2008 and Que Promesa since 2015. Students at both Promesa and LA Prep come from the neighborhood near our schools, with more than 90% living within 5 miles from any one of our campuses. At Que Promesa, we embrace the rich culture of Boyle Heights and partner with organizations such as the YMCA and Inner City Struggle. We are seeking your approval as we realize our dream of a permanent united school for our KIPsters in Boyle Heights in order to fulfill our promise to our students and our families. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Vera Topete, and I'm a 2nd grade teacher at KIPP Promesa Prep. This is my 2nd year teaching with KIPP LA Public Schools, and I'm so thrilled to be giving back to my community. I grew up in the neighborhoods in and around KIPP Promesa's current campuses, and I understand the concerns from some Boyle Heights residents that charter schools are filled with outsiders invading our home, because I used to be one of those concerned citizens. But after becoming a teacher with KIPP, I know now that our schools are not comprised of outsiders, but rather children from our communities who are simply seeking a choice in their education. On average, KIPP LA elementary schools outperform 93% of all elementary schools in California. Of our 300 students at KIPP Promesa, 96% are Hispanic and 27% are English language learners, reflecting the demographics of the Boyle Heights community. It is our priority to teach Spanish to all of our students, and many are becoming bilingual. In addition, 90% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch, and Promesa provides food for all students who need it. These children are our neighbors. They are our siblings, our brothers and nephews. They deserve a high-performing school like KIPP Promesa Prep. Thank you for your support of our permanent location.
Good afternoon. My name is Sincere Sreen Hernandez. I am 8 years old and I'm in 3rd grade. My 3 favorite subjects are science, math, and reading. I've been going to KIPP Promesa Prep for 3 years, and this is my 4th year at this school. I love KIPP Promesa Prep because I see how hard our teachers help us to get the best education that we can get. But the hard part is that my sister Symphony is going to be attending our school. So my grandma Becky needs to pick me up on Dozier Street, and then she has to pick my sister Symphony up on Dakota Street. And it will be very hard for my grandma Becky because she has to make 2 trips. I would like there to be 1 building for KIPP Promesa Prep because I want to be with my sister Symphony, and it will also help our parents who only have to take us to 1 building and not 2. I don't think it's fair that they have to go to 1 campus to another just because we don't have our very own building. My conclusion is that I want KIPP Promesa Prep to be in 1 building because I want the families in the community to pick up their children in 1 building, and for the students like me to be able to go to school with my siblings. Oh, and one more thing. I want to share with you that when I'm 18 years old, I want to go to Harvard University to study to become the world's best doctor so I can help the people in the community. I know that KIPP Promesa Prep is going to prepare me to reach my goals and fulfill my dreams. I want to thank Councilman Husar for hearing my story about why I want KIPP Promesa Prep to have our very own building and playground too. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana de la Torre, and I am a proud grandmother of Charlie Grace Perez, a TK student at KIPP Promesa Prep. I have been a resident of Boyle Heights for almost 60 years. My community has changed a lot. Some of these changes are overwhelming, but oftentimes change is good. One great change has been new school choices for my grandchild. My daughter and son-in-law did extensive research to find the best fit. At Promesa Prep, we found loving community teachers and staff excited teach the new generation of Boyle Heights leaders. Charlie Grace is learning to love reading and math from her teachers, many of which are from our very own community. I've been very active in Charlie's education and met many families doing the same. I witnessed the hardships with traveling between the 2 sites. We all want permanent roots in Boyle Heights community. I ask you to support our permanent facility
for all our existing TK through third grade students. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesus Perez, and I'm the proud father of Charlie Grace Perez, a TK student at Kip Promesa Prep. My wife and I are both first-generation Latinos. My wife grew up in Boyle Heights, is a graduate of Roosevelt, and taught there for 2 years special needs kids. She's now a family medicine doctor at County USC Medical Center. I was a public school kid my entire life. I have engineering degrees from MIT and Stanford, and I've worked at Raytheon Space and Airborne Systems in El Segundo for the past 21 years. My wife and I are huge advocates of public schools, and when it came time to look for a school for our daughter, we looked for a public school that we felt would provide the academic, social, and cultural environment we wanted for her. I did countless hours of research, poring over performance test data for schools around Boyle Heights, and talked to parents and teachers. At the end of our search, it was clear to us that what KIPP was doing with the students at Raíces, Iluminar, and Comienza was something special and almost beyond belief. As an engineer, I'm trained to trust data and make decisions based on the best available data. What the data was telling me was that KIPP was getting the outcomes with the general population of students that were on par with what other schools serving a similar demographic were getting with the gifted population of students. Ask any parent, and 9 out of 10 will tell you they want better schools in their community.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Evelyn Flores, and I am proud resident of Boyle Heights, as well as a Kip Promesa parent. My daughter Miley is a student of Kip Promesa doing the fundraise since kindergarten now to third grade. I chose Kip Promesa for many reasons, not only for their high test scores, graduation from college, matrix race completed of another high schools in Boyle Heights area. I also consider it was the community of relationships, belongs, and meanings the needs of all students understand chose KIPP. KIPP Promesa teach me like a parent community member as equal parents, and also decide to equal that all children are able to grow up, learn, and success. My daughter receives a special education, a service like 9%. Please support us, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Myra Salazar, and I am proud to have been born, raised, and still living in East LA. I also have the privilege of working for KIPP LA Public Schools. And as we know, today are midterm elections, so many of our community partners that we work with and whom are supporting our permanent location are unable to attend this meeting. They, like we, are making sure that our community is getting out to vote. But that being said, I wanted to restate the letters of support we have received that have already been entered into the record. And that's Office of LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis, Office of LAUSD Board President Monica Garcia, Inner City Struggle, the East LA Weingart YMCA, and Stephen Almazan, community member and member of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council. I also want to ask all the families, staff, teachers, students who are here from KIPP Promesa to please stand up. Si se pueden parar las familias, los estudiantes de KIPP Promesa. We have over 200 with us today. Others that couldn't join us who are here to ask for your support of our permanent location of our existing families and existing students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the four side, and people who are either against or have general comment, I'll go through the list and we'll take up 20 minutes worth. First, beginning with, we'll go with Marisol. Yeah, you have 3 minutes. The impact statement has been confirmed. And in the future, the neighborhood council, if they could submit them prior to the meetings, and that way they're in the record, and that way when we take up public comment, we know that the neighborhood councils will have additional time. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe we did that. I'm not sure why it didn't make it. That's why I brought it in today. But good afternoon. My name is Marisol, or Sol Marquez, and I am a member of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, but I am also a member of Centro CSO Community Service Organization. I'm here because we were at your office, Councilman Jose Huizar, yesterday, myself, parents from Boyle Heights, teachers from Boyle Heights, and community members from Boyle Heights. And I understand that yesterday you did tell the families and the delegation that you had never heard anybody have any opposition to KIP. And this letter, this community impact statement that we submitted from the Bull Heights Neighborhood Council is dated December 14, 2017. So since 2017, we have been issuing our opposition to KIP. It was voted 8 against and 4 for it. So it was, overwhelmingly stopped. We said that we wanted to express that we are opposed to the conditional use permit by KIP, who was they were trying to come in through the Bull Heights Neighborhood Council. But I also want to note that I, as a member of Centro CSO and someone who was outside of your office protesting, we did have a lot of demands. We did notice that outside of your office, you did have pro-charter stuff on the windows and inside of your office. We think that that's not okay, especially because public schools are currently under attack. We have multi-billionaires like Eli Broad publicly stating that he wants to have over 50% of public schools become privatized, and that is extremely dangerous, especially when it's coming from multi-billionaires like Eli Broad. We also want to know that, we want everybody to know that during yesterday's delegation meeting, you did say that you were afraid of KIP suing you. We think that that's kind of an interesting statement, and I repeat, KIP suing you, you were afraid of that. I also want to say that Bull Heights, is totally under attack by big corporations like Exide that also caused a lot of lead poisoning in the soil. And my understanding is that KIP currently hasn't done an exam of the soil, and one of the main ways that you contract lead poisoning is through inhaling it or through ingesting it. And so that's a big concern for us, especially because where it currently sits, it is on Soto and 4th, which is a huge populated area. Soto is extremely busy. Breed is also going to be affected by this. The neighboring schools are also going to be affected if there is demolition. Where is the soil that's contaminated with lead going to go? We think this is a huge concern. I'm here to say my opposition as somebody who lives in Bull Heights as well. I live right on Chicago and Chavez. I do want to say that lead poisoning, that safety for these other kids, and also there are so many charters already in Bull Heights, 625 students. Where will they be coming from? Will they be coming from the neighboring schools? Because 125 versus 625 is a huge difference. There's a 500 student ratio difference. So where are they coming from? And I also want there to be, union representation for these KIP teachers and their staff. We think that's also a concern.
Thank you.
I also want to note that you did
time,
let
ma'am.
other people go
Ma'am,
over
that concludes
their
your
time
time.
limit.
Thank you very much. Let me state that anybody who has any information that they want to distribute to the community can always place those pamphlets, that information at my office. My office is open for anyone who wishes to place information on those desks, on those areas. And the Bull Heights City Hall is open for everyone. And in fact, because of First Amendment, we allow freedom of speech at those areas. We cannot and will not prohibit certain organizations or people from not being able to place their information on those tables. Secondly, I want to remind everybody that what's before us is the issues of land use. The school district, the Board of Education grants charters. We, as a council, look at the land use issues, the environmental issues, and what's before us. Now, if I had stated that somebody could sue us, if we look at the information before us and do not base it upon land use and environmental issues, but other considerations, anybody can sue, whether if we do not base it on what's before us. So we want to just be clear that what's before us, it's land use and environment matters, and that's what our decisions are based upon here. Eloisa Martinez, Sandra Torres, Jasmine Garcia. Sí, ahorita viene para que te reduzca.
Traducción es 2 minutos.
Sí, 2 minutos. Ajá.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eloisa Martínez.
Good afternoon. My name is Eloisa Martinez. Antes que nada estoy viendo que cuando ellos hablaron no pusieron restricciones, cuando habló Marisol le ponen restricciones.
Before anything, I want to say that when they talk, you don't put any restrictions. When Marisol spoke, you put restrictions.
Una cosa que yo estoy viendo, estoy desde hace rato, estoy viendo la crisis de vivienda.
One of the things, can you hear me okay?
No, we can't hear you.
One of the things that I've seen is the crisis with the dwellings, with vivienda.
Todo esto es muy bonito lo que dice Megakip. Yo sé de las corporaciones billonarias que están atacando a las escuelas públicas.
Everything that you say here is, I see is very nice about Mega Kid. I've seen all the millionaire corporations they're attacking.
Pero les faltó decir de las familias que están alrededor de la Megakip que van a hacer que están desalojando, se van a quedar sin casa las familias porque quieren extenderse.
But they forgot to mention about the families that live around Mega Kid, that they're going to be evicted because they're going to be without a place to live.
Podrán decirme que estoy mintiendo con las corporaciones, he ido a marchar hacia ellos y les he dicho que inviertan en las escuelas que ya existen.
I have, I need for her to repetirlo otra vez.
Padres y comunidad y ustedes presentes pueden decirme, esta mamá está mintiendo.
Parents and people and you here, you can say that this mother is lying to me.
Yo he ido a las corporaciones billonarias a decirles que inviertan en las escuelas que ya existen.
I have gone to the billionaire corporations to ask them to invest in the schools that already exist.
Estoy aquí y no apoyo a Megakip.
I'm
Okay,
here
gracias.
and I don't support Mega Kid.
Hello, my name is Sandra Martinez. My kids attend to Hamasaki Elementary. Kid Sol is next to our school. Our school is suffering the consequence of being next to our kids' school. Each year, we're losing a teacher. We have less and less students. My son, he's 7 years old, and for 1 week, he was crying because he was gonna lose his teacher. I went to the district for help. I went with Monica Garcia, Señor Huerta. We don't have a nurse. My son has asthma. He's a very sick child. 2 months ago, he almost died, and we only have a nurse for Fridays, only 1 day. We don't have a wheelchair ramp. To go to our school, you need to go 10 steps. I asked for help, and they say, we don't have money. Why are you inverting why you're funding another school to be open if we need? We have a lot of necessities to our school. Por favor, ayúdenos. I went to different. Who is going to help our children?
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jasmine Garcia, and I'm here opposing the construction of the Mega KIP. This is going to impact already a very busy street. It's going to impact the traffic as well as parking and the environmental. It's going to have a very negative environmental impact to our community. Another thing, there will be families that will be displaced. And I'm here, just representing all the families that will be impacted. We're not here as KIP employees. We didn't get bused here. So I just want to say that I'm very opposed to the construction of KIP, and there's already existing schools that kids can be attending in the neighborhood.
Carlos Sardan, Mimi Guzman Duncanson, Nelly Solis. Okay, un momento.
My name is Anely Solis.
Y estoy en contra de las escuelas charter. Ya no queremos escuelas charter cerca de las escuelas públicas.
¿Puedo hablar al micrófono? No se puede oír. Can you guys speak into the microphone? It's hard to hear.
¿por qué no invierten el dinero en lo que van a invertir en las escuelas, Char? ¿Por qué no lo invierten en escuelas públicas? ¿Por qué no apoyan a los maestros que están pidiendo solo el 6%? Son $90. ¿Por qué se lo están regalando a las escuelas, Char?
Why don't you invest that money in the school, in the public school, instead of the charter school? Why don't you invest in the teachers? They're like the 6%, they need the money.
¿Por qué quieren invertir más? ¿Por qué quieren abrir más escuelas, Char? A nosotros nos afectan las escuelas públicas. Yo soy madre de 5 hijos.
Why you want to invest in charter school? Why don't you invest in public schools? The charter schools affect us. I'm a mother of 5 kids.
Ahora ellos vienen aquí ahorita a las escuelas, Char, en el bus del distrito, y nosotros venimos en el bus, tenemos que pagar el bus y ellos no pagan nada. Ellos piden el gratis.
They come here on the bus from the charter school, and we don't come on the bus. We have to pay for the bus. We don't ask for anything. They have to get it for free.
Queremos que apoyen a las escuelas públicas, no queremos que apoyen a las escuelas, Char.
We want you to support the public school, not the charter schools.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Carlos Sardan, Mimi Guzman Duncanson.
Good afternoon.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Good afternoon. I am a student at an LAUSD school, and I oppose the construction of the charter school Kip Promesa on 4th Street and Soto because I live in the area and it is already traffic heavy and it will hurt schools nearby. Construction can increase pedestrian danger, which includes youth and their families. I am not here because I am against the families of Kip Promesa or charter, but I am against the people who support those schools and let them waste money instead of giving the money to public schools that really need it. My teacher, he needs a lot of things, and sometimes he makes kids share the things.
Thank you. What was your name again?
Natalie De La Cruz.
What, Natalie what?
De La Cruz.
De la Cruz?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Chairman Weezar and Plum Committee members. I am here today to speak in favor of the appeal you have before you to stop this mega KIP from being built at the Lincoln Hospital site in Boyle Heights. My hope is that I can plead to your common sense and better judgment in order to help you realize that while this issue is very divisive and we can have our different opinions on both sides of the issue, the concern and outrage of this community really stems from the negative environmental and educational impact this school creates in an already densely populated area. As a community representative, I am here to remind you that this privatized corporate charter school would only add more problems than it is trying to solve. Now we come to find out that the process has been flawed and the protocols have not been fully followed according to government guidelines. And what's the effect? A series of mistakes have led to the possibility of a lawsuit to halt this project because no community report was turned in, the environmental report was ignored, the plug report was labeled approved when in fact they opposed when it was opposed. The Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council vote also labeled it in favor and also voted against it. Please vote no against. Accept the appeal, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Councilmen and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. My name is Mimi Guzman Duncanson. I am a teacher in LAUSD. I am a former resident of Boyle Heights and a current resident of East LA for the last 7 years. I worked at Sunrise Elementary School. I am here to speak against the tear down and rebuild on Soto Street to create a mega KIP charter school. I ask that you deny the request due to unnecessary traffic and loss of parking space that this project will cause. When I lived in Boyle Heights, I had a 2-mile commute that took 60 to 8 minutes. One day I made the mistake of going down Soto Street on a rainy day, and it took 30 minutes to go 2 miles. The traffic on Soto is already too much. There are already too many schools and too many other important buildings on that street. Adding a charter that brings 600 more students would just create chaos. There's also limited parking space. Right now they're saying they're going to have 33 spaces, when in reality they would need 66, 80, or 100 to accommodate 600 students and the staff at that school. I'm asking that you deny the rebuild on Soto Street.
Great. Thank you. Jason Solis, Ashley Romero. Not here? Oh. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley, and I go to an LAUSD school, which is Mariana Elementary School. I oppose to the construction of the charter school, Cape Promesa on 4th Street and Soto, because I live on the area, and it's already traffic heavy, and it will hurt schools nearby. I am very worried this unneeded school will diminish available parking for residents once the school operates. And that is true. You should all support the public schools, because where many of you have gone to study for. And you shouldn't destroy the public schools. Many people that are successful, like doctors, judges, and many of you politicians like you have gone to public schools, and they have been successful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason. I went to a public school, an RUSD school. I opposed the construction of the charter school, Cape Promesa, on the 4th Street in Soto, because I live in an area and it's already traffic heavy, and it will hurt schools nearby. I am very worried this unneeded school will add pollution during the construction. Many kids already have asthma. This will have a negative environmental impact. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final two speakers are Meredith Flores and Kelly Solis.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I go to Mariana Avenue Elementary. I feel that Mariana is a second home to me and other people. I oppose the construction of the charter school Cape Promesa on 4th Street and Soto, because I live in the area and it is already traffic heavy and it will hurt schools nearby. I am very worried this unneeded school will have many causes. One cause is that local schools already have low enrollment, meaning less resources for students enrolled in the local schools. Adding an unneeded mega charter school who will hurt kids in local schools. Instead of building an unnecessary school, we should build necessary resources such as green space for our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meredith Flores, and I go to an LAUSD school. I oppose the construction of the charter school Cape Promesa on 4th Street and Soto because I live in the area and it is already traffic heavy and it will hurt schools nearby. I am very worried this unneeded school will add traffic delays for Boyle Heights and East LA students and families in getting to school. For instance, I go to school sometimes late because of the traffic, and sometimes I can't make it. And the traffic makes it, and the Cape Promesa will make it worse because it will add more traffic because the people will want to get there too, and the people that already had that route will have less time to go to their destination.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. And now let me open it up by asking, and again, I want to remind everybody that we know that in the educational field, there's a huge battle between UTLA and the charter schools, and there's also some parents who are concerned about other schools coming into their neighborhoods. But what's before us here are the land use issues, the traffic issues, the environment issues, and that's what we have to vote on. There's been an appeal based upon those issues. The appeal states that not enough adequate environmental review has been conducted, and that's what we have to review as a whole. So that's what's before us. So the questions and the discussions we have is based upon that. It's not based on other educational issues. The educational issues should be discussed by the Board of Education and the school district. And yes, it does flow into the quality of life in the area. So a school as a whole, how does that impact the neighborhood? How does that impact other quality of life issues in the neighborhood? Those are the types of things that we take into consideration. But to the staff, there was an issue raised at the traffic report. It was raised by the appellant's attorney that we just posted something recently on the traffic patterns. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Lillian Rubio, City Planning Department. An erratum was uploaded on October 26, 2018 to the council file, and that was to speak and fix an administrative error when uploading the MND to the planning's websites. The incorrect traffic study was uploaded when the MND was circulated, and as soon as staff noticed, an erratum was released. The erratum does not change the outcome of the environmental analysis and is solely an administrative correction. Although staff uploaded the incorrect file to the planning website, a hard copy of the correct one was in the case file and was located, as mentioned in our environmental findings, in our office. There was no request made to staff to review the file.
And what were the findings of the corrected traffic study?
Lillian Rubio, the findings corresponded to the analysis that was done in the mitigate negative declaration, which was to impose a traffic mitigation program as recommended by our Department of Transportation.
Okay, and was that traffic study conducted by the city or by the applicant?
Lillian Rubio, the traffic study was conducted by a consultant, a traffic consultant, and then was reviewed and approved by our Department of Transportation.
Okay, but the applicant did hired the consultant?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, and so can I ask the applicant to come up, please? What you are essentially doing is you're proposing to consolidate two schools into one of them of which is outside the city boundaries in unincorporated East LA. One is in Boyle Heights in the city of Los Angeles. If you combine those alone, are you increasing the number of students that you have, or is it going to be similar to the two students?
It would be a combined capacity of 625 students, so it would be similar to the two schools combined.
To the existing. So there's an existing enrollment at the two schools that would make up the 625, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so it's not a new school coming in, it's existing schools.
That's correct.
And so in terms of neighborhood impacts to the local community, aside from what we see in the quantitative analysis of the traffic study, environmental impacts, et cetera, have you guys identified any other impacts to the local community?
We have not. In fact, what we discussed with the Department of Transportation through the Planning Department and subsequent conversations is, in fact, that the combined operation in one single facility will improve that circulation as opposed to having those multiple trips and queuing in two separate sites. We did, council member, agree to a condition to allow for staggered times of start class in that morning to further accommodate the queuing that would occur. That was a condition that we thought was appropriate and voluntary, but really it improved the idling. In addition to that, I would add, relative to the concern that was raised, is after the appellants submitted their appeal, we conducted additional studies to supplement the MND on a voluntary basis, as I mentioned previously. What we wanted to look at was not only the circulation, but also the air quality conditions relative to the vehicles dropping and picking up students. And what we found was that the M&D conclusions were adequate, and we supplemented the record accordingly.
Okay, and Soto Street is a very busy street, diesels, other types of, a number of, buses at high speeds at times. It's quite dangerous on Soto Street, I would add, in terms of for young children to be around. So most of the pickup and drop-off is in the back end, correct?
That is correct. We spent some time thinking about how the circulation, the internal circulation, would be appropriate. We, in consultation with the client, of course, spent some time looking at what sites in the community that we serve would be appropriate. Because this is already a significant parcel in terms of build-out, the actual facility that would replace the existing hospital is roughly the equivalent of what's currently there. What we looked at is also the existing traffic patterns for the hospital at the time that the traffic study was prepared, and what we concluded was that actually the school use would enhance and not increase any impacts. It would actually enhance the circulation. Beyond that, we looked also, as you mentioned appropriately, Soto is a highly trafficked with rapid buses, etc., and we thought that Breed Street, because there's already an egress and ingress for this existing facility, would be the appropriate location for a pickup and drop-off.
So the ingress and egress is behind the school for students. In the front on Soto, will you have entrance into the school?
There would be an entrance, but it would be monitored, so the pickup and drop-off would be on the back side of the facility, which is currently already available for entry.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Let me do this. I have recently become aware of some additional studies that have been conducted for this site, and based upon the record, we see that there really isn't many impacts in the general vicinity because of the school. But I do want to review those reports because I think having an additional 625 students in the area, we want to make sure that other quality of life issues are impacted. Unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity to kind of look at some conditions or some additional input that we could provide, as we usually do when these types of projects come before us. So I would like to continue this item for a few weeks so we could thoroughly review those studies and to see if there are any additional type of mitigations we could put in terms of the actual, well, review the reports first, and then secondly, see if there's any additional type of mitigations we could put in for other types of safety issues for the students and or additional impacts that may be on the neighborhood that are not necessarily in the reports. When we do these types of analysis, they're very specific to traffic and other types of issues, environment, but like I said, these types of projects, we also look at other neighborhood impacts that I think we haven't really thoroughly discussed, and those things need to be discussed. So hopefully within a few weeks we could discuss those and come back and make a final determination. So I would move that we continue this item to November 27th, and we are going to close public comment. We have heard public comment today. We are not required to have public comment again. On November 27th, we will hear this item again. If anybody wants to give additional input on this item, please contact my office or the planning staff for any additional input you would like to give on this project as it moves forward. Okay. So any objections to continuing this to November 27th? No objections. No objections. So ordered. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Mejia.
Next item, Councilman, is item 9. It's Cultural Heritage Commission report. Relative to the inclusion of Silver Lake Texaco Service Station.
What item do you have, Mr. Mejia?
It was item 9, Councilman.
Okay. Let's hold on for 1 minute while we allow people to exit. If we could exit quietly, please, so that we could continue this meeting, that would really be appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay. It's a charter and UTLA issue. The battles always go on. It's not. No, but I always see the battles that when I was on the Board of Education that you.
I get it. We're representing community today.
Okay, all right. Okay, you could go ahead, Mr. Bernstein.
Okay. Again, Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning, Office of Historic Resources. Before you in item 9 is the Historic Cultural Monument application for the Silver Lake Texaco Station on Silver Lake Boulevard, a one-story auto-related commercial building. This is a 1941 streamlined, modern style building designed by the industrial designer Walter Teague. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation was that this met 2 of the Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. First, in reflecting the economic history of its community as a rare surviving example of an automobile commercial development from the 1940s, and second, for its architecture as a rare example of a streamlined, modern automobile service station from the 40s. Again, the recommendation is that it was unanimous by the Cultural Heritage Commission. I'm sorry, it was a 3-to-1 vote by the Cultural Heritage Commission in this case, that it does meet 2 Cultural Heritage Ordinance criteria. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. So we have the applicant is the City of LA, right? And we have the owners, Ballure and Associates. So representatives would want to come up and speak. Daniel Friedman? No. Yes. No. Yes.
Thank you,
Go right ahead.
Chair Weezar. So should the property owner speak now, and his representative?
Pardon me?
Just point of order. So now the property owner will speak. I
Yes,
couldn't quite hear.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
So I'll
you could.
speak on his behalf, and then I'll have him come up. I know it's
Okay.
getting late. Some
You have
people
5
might be-
minutes total, so however you want to
Yeah,
use it.
we'll make it. We'll get it in 5 minutes. First off, Chair Weezar, members of the Plum Committee, thank you so much. I appreciate your patience here tonight. My name is Daniel Friedman. I'm with the law offices of Jeffrey Mangels, Butler, and Mitchell. I represent the property owner in this situation, in this case. Let me put a couple things into context. The property was identified in Survey LA, but Survey LA is a window survey, meaning they don't do a full historic resource assessment of a property. Those are 2 different things. Whether something is or is not historic, that's a determination made later down the line. Survey LA in CEQA, it can be a presumption, but it's a window survey. It's a possibility. So we had our expert look at it, do a complete historic resource assessment, and as you'll find, and the materials I submitted to the clerk, that they found that it is not historic. And the reason why they found it not historic is because, well, you can just look at the headline of what this item is being called, a Texaco gas station. Well, it's not a Texaco. There's no Texaco labeling. That stuff is really important to the integrity of the building. It's not a gas station. It's not in its original conditions. And it's really in bad disrepair. So it doesn't meet the criteria for designation as a historic monument. But with that said, it does have a certain Americana to it, which our client understands. And in working with the council office, we came up with a plan here, which we think makes a lot of sense, that we think turns something that doesn't have historic quality and historic designation merit into something that will at one point. And as part of that plan, which the council office might hopefully will speak on, has to do with a plan we've reached with River LA. As part of that plan, we're going to relocate the building to a new concession stand located along the river. It's a beautiful example of the way we can have both in this city. We can have new housing and we can have historic preservation. And as part of that, I do want to go back a little bit to help you understand the context of this designation. The reason why this designation was controversial and is controversial is that my client has been processing an application to build a multifamily building over retail on this site for many years now. And this designation posed a major problem, and I'm sure you read it about, maybe you read about it in Curbed LA, especially given the times we're in right now with the housing crunch that we're in. This is not a good look. This was not a good look from the beginning. The idea of us preserving a gas station at the expense of housing. And so what I want to give the city a lot of credit for, and especially the council office, and also my client and River LA, was we made it work. We found a way to solve two problems, and I think it's going to be a good result for the city, for historic preservation, and for housing. So we hope that pursuant to the report that you've received that was submitted to the Cultural Heritage Commission, you vote to not designate. We will come back in the future when it's ready to be designated, when it's an appropriate, when it meets the criteria to do so, and we'll do that with River LA to get that done. So with that, I'm going to ask the property owner to come up, and he'll say a few words as well.
Hi, I'm William Hefner. I'm the owner of this property. I've owned it for 10 years. I'm an architect, not a professional developer, and I've been working on plans here for a number of years. At numerous times during our process of designing, we reached out to the neighborhood planning department in various iterations, and the council office is looking for support. And it wasn't until we were completely through our plan check process and our building permit that one of the last sign-offs that we and applied for a demolition permit during our haul route application that this was brought up. It was a surprise to us, so I'm excited to work with LA River LA people in order to put this building there and have it be in a place that the public can enjoy it and use it.
Thank you.
And I'll Daniel Friedman, Jeffrey Mangels, and I'll just conclude again, emphasizing a couple points that Mr. Hefner made. First off, the drawings are in front of you, council members. I submitted them, so you can see what it's going to look like. It's a rendering prepared by my client. It's going to be a beautiful building, and what I like most about it is that it turns what would have otherwise been a private amenity to a public amenity. So this is going to be a building that the city can share in, that the public can participate in, that can touch and feel it, can be in a public right away. It's going to be a really nice project, and we look forward to working with the city council and the council office and on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. CD 13.
Good afternoon, or perhaps good evening. My name is Craig Bullitt from Councilmember O'Farrell's office. The council initiated nomination of the Texaco service station located at 1650 Silver Lake Boulevard was undertaken when the then owner's representatives failed to respond to this office request for a historic resource assessment report. The property was identified on Survey LA as being eligible for listing as a historic resource through survey evaluation. Survey LA is a valuable planning tool that this office uses regularly in formulating our positions on projects. At the Cultural Heritage meeting, this office took no position on whether or not this building should be added to the Historic Cultural Monument list, and by that time the owner's new representatives provided a historic assessment report that addressed issues of why the building in its current condition did not meet the thresholds for listing. We weighed that very heavily against the recommendations made by the Cultural Heritage Commission. In an effort to resolve that, we used the time and several continuances to work with the owner to craft a solution that addresses preservation of the building. This work resulted in an agreement between the owner and River LA in which the structure will be donated and relocated for an adaptive reuse as a concession stand in a public park. We will get community input in a future date, but we have identified several sites. As such, the office will not be supporting the addition of the structure as a historic cultural monument at this time. Though not conventional, we think that we were able to achieve the historic preservation that was desired. I would like to thank the staff of the Office of Historic Resources for the amount of work that they put into this effort. It is very much appreciated. I'd also like to thank the owner for being responsive and willing to come forward to work with us to come up with a solution that addresses both historic preservation and the need for additional housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Citrone, Lawrence Schaefer, and Shrust.
Good evening. My name is Carol Citrone from Silver Lake. This building was designed by Walter Teague, one of the most important modern industrial designers of his time. People come to Silver Lake from all over the world to look at our architecture. I think it's important to ask the question, what is the point for the city of Los Angeles, which has spent 10 years and countless taxpayer dollars to survey and identify potentially historic sites all over the city, if you then ignore your own findings and that of the Cultural Heritage Commission, which, by the way, did deliberate and decide that it did meet the criteria for an HCM. I think that this historic site, not only was the site noted for National Register status in Survey LA, but in a rare move, the surrounding few blocks were also singled out by the survey as the Silver Lake Village Commercial District, a small shopping district anchored by this Texaco Streamline Modern gas station. I think this is a perfect situation for adaptive reuse at the site, and I'm asking that you support the HCM at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Lawrence, and then someone named Shrust, and Christine Cantor.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Schaefer. I live in the neighborhood for the last 30, 35 years. As the former person just said, Silver Lake probably has the highest concentration of important 20th century architecture of anywhere in the world. People come from all over the world. It's a major tourist destination for the architecture. And part of the thing is to just have, the neighborhood, the texture of the neighborhood, to just
you speak into the microphone. Yes, thank you.
No, I'm so sorry. So, but we sort of destroy or move or take over these things at our peril. This is our cultural heritage. The thing that makes Silver Lake unique is the architecture. People have said come there for the architecture of people like Richard Neutra, Rudolph Schindler, Gregory Ames, Harville Hamilton Harris. But I would argue that somebody like Walter Dorman Teague is probably more well-known and more important than all the rest of them combined. So I oppose the idea of moving it or tearing it down.
Great. Thank you. Anybody here named Shrust? Yes? You didn't put a first, is that a first name or last name?
Hi, my name is Madeline Huttenbach. I signed up, but something
Okay,
went amiss.
well, we'll call you.
Am I there?
You're here, yes. Okay. Christine Cantor, or Cantner, and Toby Hemingway.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christine Cantner, and I am part of the Silver Lake Heritage Trust, and we've been following what Survey LA has been doing. And this is definitely a planning and land use issue, because I believe our community plans are coming up, and Silver Lake Village is supposed to be a historic district, or it's been pinpointed as a potential historic district. And as much as we respect the owner of the property wanting to move it and preserve it in that way, I don't know how that's possible with the condition it's in now. We have a potential buyer that is willing to purchase it or take a long lease and restore it. And I feel it needs to stay where it is, because the context of where it is in Silver Lake Village, along with the other streamlined modern and modern buildings there, is important. It can't be like a grove building. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Toby Hemingway. William Hefner. Spoke already. Madeline Huttenbach and Coco Bakshajian.
Hi, I'm Madeline Huttenbach. I just wanted to say that my son Eli went to Micheltorena, our local school. That school's in that district, and 7 families, including my own, we did like what you call a unit study on Silver Lake and Silver Lake architecture, and we took the children to the Music Box Steps, the Hollyhock House, and this particular service station, because we were trying to show the kids kind of how Silver Lake can fit, or how anyone's neighborhood can fit on a national and international scheme. So we showed them the Music Box Steps with Laurel and Hardy, and we showed them other types of prairie architecture and Mayan architecture, and we showed them the service station, especially in the context of kind of, we talked about cars. But what makes Silver Lake so awesome is these amazing pieces of architecture and history. And that's a really cool piece of industrial history, and that was something that our kids got to talk about. So I hope it stays where it is, because I think it's important to maintain the character of Silver Lake and not lose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name
Association. I've been in the Silver Lake community for 34 years, and I have an auto repair shops in the neighborhood. I like to keep the neighborhood character and restore them to their original looks, and I've always admired that property, and I would like to have the opportunity to do the same thing, to preserve it and save it from being demolished and make it a part of the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. And after reviewing the record and recommended, anything to add, Mr. Bernstein? No. We would ask, we'll take the recommendation of Council District 13 and deny the nomination. Do we have any additional language we need to add to that?
Well, my concern was the findings.
Adrian Corsani, City Attorney's Office. So if the committee is disagreeing with the recommendations of the Cultural Heritage Commission, it would just need to state for the record what the disagreement is. And the criteria or the findings that were made were that the service station reflects the broad cultural, economic, or social history of the nation, state, or community as a rare surviving example of an automobile commercial development from the 40s. And the Silver Lake Texaco station embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type specimen. So if you disagree with those findings, you put that
Yes,
to the
and
record.
CD13, you stated in your comments. Can you state those again, please, when you gave your comments?
Thank you. This is Craig Bullitt from Council District 13. In doing our analysis of what we thought of why the station should not be listed, we noted that there were several character-defining features of the station that were no longer present, including signage and fixtures. It was determined that they're no longer available. It's not an object that can be returned, and so we did not believe that the building would meet the threshold as it currently exists, but it possibly could have been at a future date if those features were restored.
Right. Thank you. We'll incorporate those findings into our motion.
Thank you.
Any objection? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 10, there's been a request to continue this item by Council District 13. Is that
Council District 3, right?
Pardon me?
Council District 3?
Council District 3, I'm sorry, by Council District 3, yeah. So we'll continue item 10. Do we need a time certain for that, or we'll just continue it to a time uncertain? Thank you. So that was item 10, continued for a date uncertain. Our final item for tonight is item number 11.
Yeah, that's a Sustainable Communities Project exemption for the property at 6400 West Sunset Boulevard and 1419 North Ivor Avenue in CD13.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, council members. Sergio Ibarra, Planning Department. The item before you is a request that the City Council consider and decide whether the proposed project, planning case number CPC-2016-0630 and VTTM-74496 qualifies for a Sustainable Communities Project exemption pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21155.1. PRC Section 21155.1 provides that projects are statutorily exempt from CEQA if a hearing is held before the City Council and the City Council finds, based on the whole of the administrative record, that the project qualifies as a transit priority project as defined by PRC Section 21155B and further meets all of the criteria set forth in 21155.1A and B and one of the criteria of subdivision C. If the City Council finds after conducting a public hearing all of the above, then the project is declared to be a Sustainable Communities Project and shall be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Planning has reviewed the Sustainable Communities Project exemption that was prepared for the proposed project and is recommending that the City Council consider and determine that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to 21155.1. Briefly, the proposed project and its entitlements are not before you, rather the CEQA exemption. However, the proposed project is a mixed-use project at 6400 Sunset with 200 residential units, 5% very low income, and 7,000 square feet of ground floor commercial. The proposed project qualifies as a transit priority project pursuant to the Public Resources Code, which by definition means that the proposed project is consistent with the general use designations, density, building intensity, and applicable policies specified for the project area in the Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy prepared by the Southern California Association of Government pursuant to PRC Section 21155A and contains more than 50% residential, provides a minimum net density greater than 20 units an acre, and is within half a mile of a major transit stop or high-quality transit corridor included in a regional transportation plan, and finds that all criteria in 21155.1A and B are met, including environmental criteria, land use criteria, and at least one criteria affordable housing in PRC Section 21155.1C are met. Therefore, the Department of City Planning recommends that the City of LA find that the proposed project qualify as a transit priority project that is declared to be a sustainable communities project and is therefore exempt from CEQA in accordance with PRC Section 21155.1. And planning staff will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go to public comment. We'll hear from the applicant, Edgar Kalasian. Red Sox fan.
Good evening, Edgar Kaladian with Mayor Brown here on behalf of the applicant, 6400 Sunset LLC. For years, our communities have been negatively impacted by frivolous CEQA lawsuits that have stymied the development of much-needed housing. At the same time, we are all challenged with meeting greenhouse gas reduction mandates by 2030, all amid one of the worst housing shortages in recent history. State officials addressed these critical issues in 2008 when they adopted SB 375. SB 375 is a sustainable communities growth strategy which states that if a project is consistent with its regional and local plans, is 200 or less units, includes on-site affordable housing, is located near transit, and is environmentally superior, the project is exempt from CEQA. This is what we have here today. A 200-unit, mixed-use, environmentally superior project located along a transit corridor that will help meet GHG targets and is therefore exempt from CEQA. Furthermore, we are proud to have entered into a project labor agreement with our friends and labor to ensure good-paying local jobs. We are not here today to discuss the project or the requested entitlements. This committee's sole role today is to determine whether the project checks all of the SB 375 boxes, and if you agree with the planning department staff that it does, to conclude that this project is exempt from CEQA. In reviewing the SB 375 checklist, the administrative record contains substantial evidence that the project meets or exceeds all requirements. Specifically, based on square footage, at least 50% of the project will be for residential use, and the minimum net density exceeds 20 dwelling units per acre. Furthermore, the project is located less than half a mile from a major transit stop. As described in detail on page 4 of the exemption, including the historic technical report, the project and other projects approved prior to the approval of the project will be adequately served by existing utilities. Specifically, the project is located in Hollywood, and the project site's immediate vicinity is fully built out. The project site is currently served by existing utilities, including water mains, sewer lines, and storm drain inlets maintained by LADWP and the city. The project would connect to existing utility infrastructure. The property does not contain wetlands or riparian areas, does not have significant value as a wildlife habitat, and will not harm any protected species. A preliminary endangered assessment was prepared, which concluded that that there is no potential for exposure of future occupants to significant health hazards from the area. The project will not have a significant effect on historical resources. The property is currently occupied by Amoeba Music, which was built in 2001 and has publicly announced that they will be relocating from the property. Historical Resources Group prepared a historic technical report that confirmed that the property is not eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, California Register of Historic Places, the City of Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument Register, or any other local register. Furthermore, the historic report concluded that the property is not significant because of its association with events or persons. All applicable mitigation measures and performance standards from prior EIRs have been incorporated into the project. Finally, the project will be at least 15% more energy efficient as compared to Title 24 and will use at least 25% less water than an average household. Pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21155.1a, if you find that the project meets the requirements enumerated in this section, you shall determine that the project is exempt from CEQA. There have been some comments submitted into the public record. We absolutely believe that the record contains substantial evidence supporting the Planning Department's recommendation. We furthermore are very confident that public noticing meets state requirements. Therefore, based on the substantial evidence in the administrative record, it is clear that the project meets or exceeds all of the requirements, and we respectfully request that you recommend that the City Council deem the project exempt from CEQA. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Karstens. And then Craig Bullock from City 13.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and Honorable Committee members. My name is Doug Karstens of Chatton Brown and Karstens here on behalf of the Coalition to Preserve LA. We submitted a letter October 25th, 2018. Stand by all those comments for why this is not exempt or should not be exempt. Would like to add another one, and that is it does not meet the requirements of Public Resources Code 21155.1 subdivision B5, which requires mitigation measures to be incorporated into a project. This project is asking for a zone change to remove the delimitation to increase the floor area ratio, and that removal of a delimitation, which is a mitigation measure, means it doesn't meet the exemption requirements. We object to the piecemeal review of this project. It should be reviewed along with all of the entitlements. We also believe that undoing mitigation measures requires environmental review. We ask you to continue with the environmental impact report that was started for this project and object to the approval of the exemption. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening.
Craig Bullock, do you wish to speak now or at the end? Okay. Nicole Shahinian, Shomari Davis.
Good evening. Nicole Shahanian with the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Chamber and the more than 800 businesses that we represent, I'm proud to support this project and recommend that it be designated as exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. As a transit priority project, it meets the special criteria to be designated as a sustainable community project. The proposed development will be located on one of Hollywood's major thoroughfares and only 4 blocks from the metro station at Hollywood and Vine. Furthermore, the project would provide badly needed housing and would earmark 5% for very low-income households. We believe it is in the best interest of the city for this project to receive this designation, and we encourage you to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Shamar Davis, Ron Miller, Jorge Castaneda.
Good evening, Ron Miller, Executive Secretary of the LA Orange County Building Trades. I'd urge you to support the planning staff's recommendation and grant the CEQA exemption. Thank you.
Thank you. Jorge Castaneda, Lee Wagman, Steve Gerdes, and Craig Bullock.
Contrary, Jorge Castaneda, Coalition to Preserve LA. So this 26-story high-rise does not qualify for a sustainable communities project exemption since it fails to meet all of the criteria listed, including perhaps most importantly, as I'm sure this Public Land Use Committee would agree, hazardous substances assessment. From the 1920s through the 1950s, the Muller Brothers gas station and service center occupied a portion of the site, including mechanic duties, gas pumps, body painting, storage of batteries, People of Los Angeles depend on members of the Plum Committee being aware of the toxic chemicals contained in gasoline, which also included lead up until the 70s. The Mueller brothers pumped gas at this site and other competitors in nearby sites. A proper CEQA review is the only way to test the soil and ensure the safety of the constituents of folks that you serve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm reading a letter submitted on behalf of Oxford Capital Group. Dear honorable members of the Plum Committee, we represent the Godfrey Hotel, which is located at 1400 Cahuenga Boulevard. The purpose of this letter is to express our support for the mixed-use development proposed at 6400 Sunset, located just north of our property. We support this project as a complementary mixed-use building, including distinctive residential units and ground floor commercial space. We understand that this project would be a great candidate for a CEQA exemption for the following reasons. Complements the surrounding uses in this vibrant area of Hollywood, including our mixed-use hotel directly south of the project. Optimizes the commercial space for a mix of uses. Provides much-needed housing, including on-site affordable housing. Incorporates various sustainable features, including energy efficiency and water reduction measures. Situated nearby transit options, which reduces the reliance on cars, increases walkability, and therefore improves air quality. This high-quality design would blend well with the existing neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Craig Bullock from CD 13.
Good evening. My name is Craig Bullock with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. The council member concerned concurs with the findings of the Department of City Planning about the exemption for this project. This concurrence, however, does not imply support for the project as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from committee members? No, see none. So we will move to approve this item. Anything I need to add to that?
No, Councilman.
Okay. Thank you, and congratulations on this. It's an interesting new way to move forward on some of these projects. Any objection? None, so ordered. Thank you. Next item
That
is
concludes the agenda, Council.
public comment. There's general public comment. We have 8. Nobody? Yeah. Okay, we have general public comment. We have a number who have signed up here. I don't know if they're all here already. Rhonda Hayter? Are you here? No. Sandra Martinez? Margaret Malloy? Antonia Ramirez? Mickey Jackson? Vivian Escalante? Irene Ponce? Vincent Wally? Okay, I think we have one person remaining here for public comment. Welcome. What's your name?
Welcome, council members. My name is Irene Ponce. I was born and raised in Echo Park in CD1, and I lived in Council District 14 for 18 and a half years. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the building that is going on in Echo Park because of the land use and planning there. We have people moving into the area, building houses that are like mega craftsmen and totally ruining the view of downtown Los Angeles. I grew up there with a beautiful view of downtown, and was not informed when the plans were final for the house that was built next door, which is 326 Levita Terrace, which totally obscures the view of 330 Levita Terrace where my mother lives. So there's something that has to be done about this because there's the gentrification problem that's happening there, the lack of parking in the particular area has totally destroyed the area, the view,
Thank you.
Everything.
Yeah, your time is up. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ponce. Good
You're
to see
welcome, Jose, and I hope we can meet together with regards to this.
you. Okay, thank you very much. Will do. Thank you.
Meeting adjourned, Council.